क्लास ऑफलाइन क्लास जब सर ऑफलाइन क्लास लेते थे यहाँ संकल्प में, तो 4.5 घंटे और 400 स्टूडेंट्स उनका लेक्चर सुनते थे, करीब 4.5 घंटे तक। मैं सर का एक फॉर्मल परिचय करा देता हूँ, बाकी का परिचय उनके लेक्चर और उनके साथ आपका जब डिस्कशन होगा तो उससे हो ही जाएगा। एम्बेसडर श्री सतीश मेहता जी। सतीश मेहता सर ने 1983 में आपने इंडियन फॉरेन सर्विस ज्वाइन की। एम्बेसडर सतीश मेहता सर मैंने बता दिया। ड्यूरिंग हिज डिप्लोमेटिक करियर ही सर्व्ड इन फ्रांस, आइवरी कोस्ट, इटली, इंडियन मिशन टू द यूनाइटेड नेशंस इन न्यूयॉर्क, इजराइल, कनाडा, कुवैत में वो एम्बेसडर रहे। He has also served in United Nations peacekeeping mission in Haiti as political advisor. He has served in Prime Minister's office also. I.K. Gujral and Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji during dealing with the strategic sector. He retired from the Indian Foreign Service as Director General of Indian Council for Cultural Relations. He is executive president of Bhagwan Mahavir Viklang Sahayata Samiti, which is very famous and which has conducted 100 Jaipur food fitment camps abroad. और ये जो भगवान महावीर विकलांग सहायता समिति है, this is world's largest organization for rehabilitation of handicapped persons. He is a qualified chartered accountant and member of the Global Advisory Board of Schulich Business School, York University, Toronto.
Definitely, because there is
yes,
across
the
screen, there is support to it. Whether it is good
yes,
or not is like a secondary thing. Even though it makes some across sense also, or not also is becoming secondary, because people seem to use.
Rahul, please mute your mic. Rahul.
Very well, which proves
Rahul.
that it was a necessity. The use rate, if you see, of women traveling in public services, it has
इसमें कोई कुछ बोल रहे थे क्या बीच में? मुझे सर, आप सतीश मेहता सर, आप कुछ कह रहे थे क्या?
नहीं, एक कैंडिडेट का माइक ऑन हो गया था। सॉरी फॉर द इंटरप्शन। यू कंटिन्यू राजेश जी।
हाँ, नो प्रॉब्लम। तो मैं सतीश मेहता सर से रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ कि अपना सर लेक्चर स्टार्ट करें और विद्यार्थियों को इंटरव्यू के लिए मार्गदर्शन करें। और फ्रेंड्स, आपसे भी रिक्वेस्ट है कि आप इस लेक्चर को पूरी तरह एंजॉय करें और जो भी आपके क्वेश्चन आंसर हैं वो सारे क्वेश्चंस इस सेशन से खत्म करने के बाद ही जाएं। सर प्लीज, मेहता सर।
सर अनम्यूट कीजिए आप।
Raju ji, first of all, I would request if all the participants can put on their videos. So I just don't want to look at names. I want to, when I interact with people, I want to see them. ठीक है ना? आप सबसे बोलिए, कर लें, आसान रहेगा, बात करने भी आसान
आप
रहेगा।
सभी लोग भले 2 मिनट ले लीजिए, लेकिन अपना अपना वीडियो आप लोग ऑन कर लें। प्लीज टेक 2 मिनट्स, गेट रेडी और अपना वीडियो ऑन कर लें। और जो लोग रेडी हैं वो अपना सारे लोग अपना वीडियो ऑन कर लें। मैं देख रहा हूँ दिव्या, एकता मिश्रा, गोपाल चौधरी, हर्ष दुबे, किसी ने नाम नहीं लिखा, आईपैड आईफोन है तो इन लोगों ने, कुणाल यादव अपने वीडियो अपना ऑन कर लिया है, नवनीत उइके ने ऑन कर लिया है। फ्रेंड्स, आप सभी लोगों से रिक्वेस्ट है, क्योंकि ये इंटरेक्टिव सेशन रहेगा, तो कृपया आप सभी लोग अपना वीडियो ऑन कर लें। उससे जो आप लोग तो एंजॉय करेंगे, लेकिन आपके साथ इंटरेक्ट, आपके फेसेस देख के सर भी इसको एंजॉय कर पाएंगे। तो कृपया आप सभी लोग अपना वीडियो ऑन कर लें। जिन लोगों का भी वीडियो ऑफ है, सभी से मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है कि आप सभी लोग अपना वीडियो ऑन कर लें।
And don't worry about how we are looking, because UPSC में आपके लुक्स को कोई फैशन शो तो है नहीं, ना कोई मिस वर्ल्ड कंपटीशन है, ठीक है ना? They are looking at your capabilities, your knowledge, how you presented, the force of your arguments, not your looks. ठीक है ना? तो आप बिल्कुल बेझिझक हो, खोल लीजिए, मुझे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता आप कुर्ते में बैठे हैं, शॉर्ट्स में बैठे हैं, that's not important.
Sir, a small request, sir. I'm traveling back. Can I turn it on once I reach, sir? I'm traveling back from work.
Yeah, okay, once you go, that's okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
अतुल जी क्यों नहीं आपकी शक्ल दिख रही है हमको? हाँ, you're wearing such a little bit lovely t-shirt यार, ठीक है ना? Great, you look so young. क्या एज क्या
सर
है आपकी?
वर्कआउट करते हुए सेशन सुन रहा था
कोई
इसलिए
बात
वो
नहीं,
ऑन नहीं।
कोई बात नहीं, वर्कआउट भी करते रहिए आप, ठीक है ना?
गुड इवनिंग सर।
अभी तो मेरे ख्याल से आप थोड़ा इंटेलेक्चुअल वर्कआउट कीजिए, इंटरव्यू
जी
नजदीक
सर।
है, बाकी बॉडी बाद में बनाइएगा, ठीक है ना?
जी सर।
चलिए, सो शुड वी स्टार्ट?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So he has already, Raju has already given you my introduction. What I'll do is I will run you through the foreign policy of India, important aspects, because the interview में इतना हर issue तो पूछने का शायद होगा भी नहीं, but the whole effort is to give you a framework. Why we do what we do, what do we seek to achieve, and touch upon some recent developments which could quite possibly be raised in case there is in your interview discussion on foreign policy, particularly for those who have opted for foreign service as one of your subjects. But before I do that, I want to ask a question. Please respond. Do you want me to speak in English? Do you want me to speak in Hindi or both? I can very easily handle both the languages. कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. तो आप depending on the majority view, because आप बता दें how would you like me to go ahead, or I use a mixture of Hindi and English if you're okay with that. Very quickly.
Mixture, sir.
So any objection to my speaking in Hindi and English together so that सभी को उसका बेनिफिट मिल जाए, those जिनकी मदर टंग एंड एग्जाम हिंदी मिल जाए उनको भी दिक्कत नहीं हो. Is it okay for all of you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Huh? No, I know couple
both
of you
is fine.
sent a message at the English. So look, wherever you have doubt, you not understood me, please ask the question. We will, while Rajuji is very disciplined, wants you to ask the questions at the fag end, I think that will be a little tiresome for you to wait for your questions to be answered till the fag end. So what I'll do is, after each segment, I will open the floor for question answer. Any doubts, I'll clear them. If there's something I feel that I'll be touching upon later, I'll tell you that it will be touched upon later, and wait for it. Is it okay in terms of rules of procedure, like our the way we move forward? Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Am I clearly audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So let's start. So I'll just explain to you, which is very important, because to give any answer, you must know what is it that we seek to achieve in through our foreign policy. So it's not made in a vacuum. It is deeply, deeply ingrained into what we seek to achieve as a country. So it's not that internal administration अलग चलता है, foreign policy अलग चलती है. That's not possible. हो भी नहीं सकता है वो, ठीक है ना? So that's important for you to understand, so that each question when is asked to you, you know there is a touchstone on which you must check your answer or your response. Will it serve their interests or not? And what interests of India do we serve, or which we wish to secure through our foreign policy? So let me first start with that. The next slide, please. राजू जी स्लाइड चेंज कीजिए.
हाँ सर, सुकृति जी जुड़ी हैं. सुकृति जी,
जो भी है जल्दी जब कहें तो कर दें, जरा टाइम ना लगाएं. इन लोगों को बहुत तैयारी करनी है, आई थिंक वी मस्ट मेक द बेस्ट यूज ऑफ द टाइम. देखिए आपको हमको फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. चलिए सुकृति जी, हाँ प्लीज. Okay, while we do that, let me, it will come on the screen also. You see, we seek to achieve two things through a foreign policy. One is to support our efforts to develop India and whatever it takes to develop India. And secondly, to secure India and whatever it takes to secure India in various dimensions. So these are two things that we seek to achieve through a foreign policy. Sukriti ji, kya hua?
I'm trying, sir.
चलिए तो तब तक let me ask a question to whom should I ask? एक स्लाइड खोलिए. हाँ, इसका नेक्स्ट स्लाइड. हाँ, नहीं, इसके नीचे लाई. हाँ, क्या कर रहे हैं?
So the challenge is which one you want?
नहीं, just come to. हाँ, this is the. हाँ, इसके पहले वाला स्लाइड, second slide. या ठीक है, थोड़ा इसको बड़ा कर दीजिए, आसान हो जाएगा पढ़ने में अगर पॉसिबल है. चलिए, गुड. So broadly, what are the principles on which our foreign policy is based? And that's important to understand this, because when you make foreign policy, these are like your guardrails. That this is what we'll do. These are some broad principles which we'll follow. So the most important principles which for India's formulation of foreign policy is a belief in friendly relations with all countries of the world. And we genuinely wish to have good relations with all countries of the world. The resolution of conflict by peaceful means. We don't want to use force as a means of resolving conflicts or differences. The sovereign equality of all states, which is small or big, they should be treated with a sense of dignity, and they should be heard, and they should be engaged with as sovereign states. Independence of thought and action in our foreign policy. We want to be independent. We want to judge each issue on its merit, and then act accordingly. And equity in the conduct of international relations. So a sense of equity is important. It can't be winner take all. It's not sustainable over a period of time. If I was to sum it up in 2 words, which our government announced and our Prime Minister done so well, Vasudevaya Kutumbakam. The world is a family. And once you say a world is a family, and then each of us are linked to each other very closely, all these things will happen. You learn to engage, you'll not fight with each other, you'll make sure that the interest of everyone is protected. And what we do is done through common consensus, acceptance of solutions to problems, which are done broadly. So, and this is our age-old ethos, the whole sense of Vasudevaya Kutumbakam. And it's now so true as the world becomes increasingly engaged with each other. So there's a broad principles we follow in formulating our foreign policy. Now, what is the purpose of foreign policy? As I mentioned to you, the purpose is to promote India's domestic agenda of development, prosperity, and peace. So development and prosperity is one rubric, and the second is peace. So let me start with development and prosperity, which is the most important thing for any government, particularly in a country like India, which still has a long way to go in terms of giving its people a decent quality of life, good education, good medical, good nutrition, clean air, good infrastructure. So that's all what you call the agenda, domestic agenda of development and prosperity. Now, what does foreign policy seek to achieve? First is to help secure capital, because to build our infrastructure, to build capabilities, we require enormous amount of capital, which we are not able to generate domestically. Second is to open up export markets. It's important for us both in terms of meeting our foreign exchange requirements, as we don't have enough oil and we don't have enough critical materials, just to say, name 2. And we require a lot of foreign exchange to secure these. So open up export markets so that we can export more which creates jobs, which creates domestic employment, brings domestic prosperity, and also helps us pay for our foreign exchange requirements for importing essentials. Access technology. So technology develops in various countries depending on the level of their competence, education levels, infrastructure, etc. And it's important that we should be able to access the most modern technologies. Because historically, but that has to be something for some other day, countries which have very high level of technology are the ones who have better chances of success and better chance of being doing well as compared to those who don't have access to technologies or cannot generate technologies. Create employment opportunities abroad. We are a large country, we are a young country. People are an example of it. So many bubbling bright minds are willing to work hard, succeed, and you require employment opportunities, good employment opportunities, which our domestic market today cannot create enough of those. So create employment opportunities abroad is an important thing that we seek to achieve through our foreign policy, and assure raw materials. And first and foremost, of course, is oil and gas. We are heavily dependent upon it. Today, more than 85% of our oil and gas requirements are imported. Imagine if somebody shut the tap off. I mean, you can't drive, you can't move your vehicles, you won't have critical raw materials. Economy go for a tailspin. So these are some of the important dimensions of our agenda of development and prosperity, which we help to secure through our foreign policy. Next slide, please. The second part is, as I said, the peace, which means ensuring India's security. Now, security has various dimensions. Territorial security and integrity of the country is fully understood. Cross-border terrorism, we want to secure ourselves. Energy security, as I mentioned to you, 85% today of our oil and gas comes from abroad, and which means that we need to secure our supplies of oil and gas, particularly food security. Right now, we are a net exporter, but for example, edible oils, we still have a humongous requirement of edible oils, which is imported. Or lentils, what you call dal. A large quantity of dal comes from abroad because we are essentially a country where a source of the major source of protein is pulses, dal jisko bolte hain. A lot of it is imported because we just haven't been able to produce as much as we require. And we haven't had any major technological breakthroughs in producing more dal like we have had in the case of wheat, for example. We have not had in case of dals. So food security is important, that we are able to insulate ourselves from the shock, and increasingly now environment security. We are about 17% of the world's population on a very small, almost about 3%, less than 3% of world's land mass. So our land is heavily stressed in terms of number of people it has to support. And if, as you keep reading these days, if there is a major problem of climate change, which impacts other rainfall, the season of rains, as you can see now, the rainfall is getting delayed as compared to what it used to be earlier. And you see it happening every once in a while. Now that has, next slide, please. Next slide, Palai. So that has a major implication for us. And through foreign policy initiatives, through good relations with countries which can supply or support the 5 elements of security I mentioned. क्या कर रहे हैं आप लोग? कितना घुमाएंगे इसको आप? But somebody has to handle this properly, please. Sukriti ji, please, क्या खोल दिया रही हैं आप सारे?
I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry. I'm just.
तो ऐसा कैसे करेंगे? बताएं ना आप. वो भी डिस्ट्रैक्ट होते हैं, हम लोग भी डिस्ट्रैक्ट होते हैं. हाँ बस ये खोलिएगा, जब मैं कहूँ तब आप चेंज कीजिएगा इसको. So environment security is very important for us. Global warming, we have very large coastal, we have more than 6,000 years of 6,000 miles of coastal area, and if sea level rises, some of it will be lost. So it has serious implications. Weather change patterns, it affects your agriculture immediately. Less rainfall can play havoc with us, and so environment security is important. Now, how do you deal with these things? You have to deal with other countries, because we don't control environment. It's not something which is confined to our internal borders or our land borders or our sea borders. And this requires working with other countries to make sure that these 5 critical elements of our security are managed well. Next slide, please. So what are the challenges when we secure these objectives? Unpredictability, complexity, and ambiguity. First of all, you don't know what's going to happen when. Ukraine war was an example. What happened recently in Gaza is another. You don't control it, you don't even know it. It just happens. COVID, another example. It just happened. One sweet morning, you realize it happens. Tsunami a few years back, if you remember. It just happens. You don't know what's in the mind of other people. I mean, look, the current days we are talking of, the Houthi attack on shipping, on ships near or close to Red Sea, completely unpredictable. So making a policy becomes a challenge of unpredictability, complexity. Often you don't understand what's at the back of the mind of people who are doing what they are doing. For example, the Gaza, the Hamas attack on Israel on 7th of October. We don't know why it happened. We can guess, we can conjecture, but we don't know why. It's just what was going at the back of their mind. And ambiguity, what countries do, why they do. It's always shrouded in ambiguity because they don't tell you what they are going to do and for what ends. And I give you the examples of Ukraine conflict, which is a major challenge because food, fertilizer, both have got seriously affected of what happened in Ukraine. And of course, oil supplies. Russia's oil got banned and whatever else had to happen, happened. Now, these all have implications on our economy, our well-being, and our security. The third is protectionist and isolationist trends. You can increasingly see in many countries, for one reason or other, or in one part or another part of the thinking, you have this protectionist and isolationist trends. And that has implications, both in terms of making a foreign policy and in the objectives we wish to secure through foreign policy. Growing radicalism in some Islamic countries. Again, you saw what happened in Gaza recently or what's happening now because of Houthis. And this has been happening, what has happened in Somalia, recently South Sudan, they were in a civil war. There is a sense of growing radicalism in some Islamic countries. And that has implications. Turbulence in the Gulf and Middle East. I mentioned about Gaza and now Houthi attacks. And I don't think this is what we are seeing is the end of it. Look, because of this Gaza attack, Israel started attacking selectively Syria, Lebanon. Who knows who will be next? Same thing with Houthi attacks now on the shipping lines. We don't know what the consequences would be and where it will end up. And the huge cost. I mean, just to take ships around the Cape of Hope is about 30% more. Shipping cost alone. Time taken is different. It disrupts lots of things. And these are challenges that you get up in the morning and say, okay, my God, there's another thing on my table, on my plate, which I have to sort out now. Ever increasing assertiveness and aggressiveness of China. You have been following events, you know about it. We'll talk more when we come to China, but all of you felt it, so I don't have to elaborate at this point. The uncertainty of US foreign policy priorities. Trump had a way of looking at things. Biden came, he looked at some of things differently, more multilateralism. But there's always uncertainty of what are US's foreign policy priorities. And it depends upon administration to administration, and within administration to individuals. Now, those are challenges you face because you have to deal with those. And last important point would be impact of a weakened EU due to COVID and Ukraine conflict. Europe is no longer what it used to be in terms of its importance, in terms of the role it played globally. I'm not saying it's now fallen by the wayside, but it does not have the same salience or same significance and importance that it used to have earlier. Its economies are weakening. The southern European countries are in an economic mess, huge debts, huge unemployment, and they really can't see the end of the tunnel. It's only the northern European countries that are still making Europe go, like Germany, Denmark, Netherlands. They are the ones who are doing very well, or still well, but not the other countries in Europe. Southern European countries are in serious trouble economically. And so EU's capacity to deal and play an important role has got diminished to that extent. Next slide, please. So this is the global context now, the larger context, because when you see things, you have to see, as I said, why countries are doing what they are doing. So that context is important to understand. Right now, as you see things, the number one power, which is the US, is facing a serious challenge from number two, which is China. And this has implications and impact on everything that we do in terms of foreign policy, in terms of who will be your friends, who will not be your friends, what technologies you will get, what support you will get. It has implications, and this is going to continue. I mean, it's going to continue easily for next 10, 15, 20 years. Except if some black swan event happens, it's likely to go on. US is unlikely to see this number one position. It has been able to maintain it for now over 100 years. It's unlikely to give way on this. And China is posing a serious problem, a major problem. So they talk of, you must have heard of, they're talking of decoupling. Is impossible. US imports more than 800 billion worth of goods from China, and they can't decouple. So now we are talking about de-risking. Basically, even if US wants to de-risk itself from China, it's about 15-year game, at least. Either they have to manufacture those things that they require themselves, or they have to have reliable partners, perhaps like India or countries like those, and where they know that the supplies will not be disrupted, and that's going to take a lot of time. And so you see this larger context having large implications on foreign policy formulation and partnerships that are being built in terms of investments, in terms of imports. Across the board, you'll see this happening in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Now, it does not help that the number two is showing aggression. Until Xi's time, before Xi Jinping, China was content with building its economy. Its focus was to build its economy. No longer now. It's becoming increasingly aggressive in trying to control sea lanes, in trying to control supplies, in trying to change borders through force or through aggressiveness. And this makes things more complicated, particularly for countries like ours. Now, historically, when there's a serious challenge to number one, historically, such periods are very turbulent and unpredictable of how they will turn or how they will pan out. And this is historically. So your generation will have to brace itself and have to deal with it for, as I said, for next 15, 20, 25 years till a clear number one emerges. or they find a modus vivendi. I don't think they'll find a modus vivendi. China is determined to become number one, and US is determined not to allow it to happen. So it's just a matter of time when things will come to a head. How it will happen, we don't know about it. When it will happen, nobody can predict. And because of this, there could be serious risk of miscalculation, which could lead to completely unpredictable and some very serious consequences. So one has to be very careful in how you handle things and how you deal with various players, important players. Now, India's salience is growing and will continue to grow, but so will complexities in dealing with US and China. Because if you come too close to US, China may become far more aggressive towards you. Possibility. It could be the other way around also. But that depends on what point of time it happens. So for us, it's a great opportunity, but we'll have to play our cards very deftly, very carefully, and always keep the eye on the ball if you don't want the catch to get missed. Now, I will stop here. If you have any questions so far, please ask the question. Either you can type it or you can raise your hand and they will unmute you, so that we get this part behind us. Any clarifications, doubt, because any answer that you give when the question is asked on foreign policy, so this will help you answer the questions. This will help you situate why you're saying what you're saying. Because then you can justify, look, it's important for India, for either for its peace and for its development and prosperity agenda, or for its security agenda, and both work together. It's not that it's one or two, they work together. But I just put, to make you understand, I put in two rubrics, development agenda and peace and security agenda. So any questions so far, anyone? Yes, please, Avishka and then Oishi. First Avishka, please go ahead, ask a question.
Good evening, sir. Sir, is it possible for India to balance on one side the Russia-China angle and on other side US? For how long India can, say that I will make my policy independently and I'll only look at my strategic interests? So will India be able to save it from being part of any cliques for long?
So far we have done it. So far we are doing quite well.
Yes.
So that's what I said. Each morning you get up and see, okay, now what next? How do I handle this? And we are doing quite well for ourselves. We have bought enormous amount of Russian oil earlier at very good rates, which helped us cushion our economy from whatever came out of Ukraine war. And now when the oil prices, the Russian oil prices are no longer as attractive, we have moved back to our traditional suppliers. So we have handled it, and we have not antagonized US. And that's where this, both the understanding of the global context and dealing with it accordingly helps. This is important, and we have done it. America is working very closely with us on so many things, despite the fact that we have not condemned Russia even once.
So, sir, how is it possible? Like, I'm just talking. How do these negotiations work? Like, India has bought a lot of Russian oil despite sanctions, and still US is fine with it. Like, why?
What are choices? What are the choices? You see, so exactly that's what you tell the Americans, for example. If you push us, we'll go towards Russia because we need oil, and if we get cheap oil, we'll go there. Do you want us to be there? See, you have to understand this thing. We are a very important country today. Perhaps most of us don't intend to understand this. And Americans would be, both Americans would not like us to be in that camp. And Russians would want, and Russians would continue to have very good relations with us, regardless of the fact that today they are more dependent upon China than they were earlier. because they don't want to remain dependent upon China forever.
Because they don't trust China too much.
Nobody trusts China. I mean, the Russians and Chinese have fought a war. India and Russia never fought a war historically. Not
Yes.
once. The war was always between, I mean, ultimately in the 60s, Russians and China were loggerheads. They fought war. They actually fought wars. And the Siberia part of Russia, which is where the Russia-China border is a very sparsely populated place. Enormous in terms of natural wealth.
Yes.
Russia doesn't want a situation where China just won the boxing and takes it over.
Okay.
Because there aren't enough people and Russia doesn't have the might.
Okay. And US wants to be friendly with India to balance China, right, sir?
Look, exactly. I said that's why I said you have to understand the global context. The global context is that today China, which almost manufactures 50% of the world's production, give or take a few percentages. Okay, is challenging US in every side. It's not just cheap goods now. Chinese are now doing very high-tech stuff. Some of the stuff that they do, even Americans are not able to do.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Just to give one example, if China stopped exporting materials, the entire global electric vehicle industry, for at least for a time being, will collapse. Just to give one example.
Electronics industry.
Electric vehicles industry. It will apply to electronics also. Yeah. China alone produces half of world steel, and this will apply to other materials also.
Oh.
And they produce some of the most critical minerals, which are very scarce, which are required for electronics, high-end electronics.
Okay.
So there's a huge dependence on China of various countries, including the US.
Okay.
Now to contain China, we are a very, very credible ally for US. We have a large defense force, a force which has been tested numerous times, perhaps the most battle-hardened army in the world, who fought at 18,000 feet also. Now, which other armies have fought? China's fought no war. The last war they fought was in Galwan. With Vietnam, which was in 70s. And then Galwan was hardly war. I mean, just a skirmish. Okay, just 100, 200 people on either side. It's not a war. They've never fought a war. They have no experience of how war works. Our troops fight wars. I mean, they live it. They live it every day. So Americans understand it.
Yes.
And a huge amount of Chinese trade and oil comes from Asia. Okay, and we sit on the throttling points. So we are important in terms of credible partners for US vis-a-vis China. There are only two: Japan and India, which have economy, which have military might, which has the resources. Okay, I've answered your question. Oishi Mandal, please.
Good evening, sir. Sir, I wanted to ask you that you said that our foreign policy is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, as our Honorable Prime Minister said. Sir, but here, if we see our stance in UN with respect to Israel-Hamas war, so what will we call India taking a realist stance or India taking an idealist stance?
Look, there is no. You have to understand this thing. What is it that we wish to secure? And I have explained to you.
Our national interest.
Your development agenda, your prosperity agenda, and your security agenda. And you need friends for it. Israel is a huge source of defense technology for us. So that's one part of it. So you have to keep the friendship working. But equally important is some of the principles. So we always supported a two-state solution. We always supported a peaceful resolution of the disputes. And here again, you have to distinguish between supporting Hamas and supporting Palestinian cause. We don't support Hamas or what Hamas did, but we support the Palestinian cause of a two-state solution. We always supported it. Even today, we support it.
So,
what you're not supporting is what Hamas did.
Yes, sir.
Not the Palestinian cause.
So, sir, can we say that India is now taking a realist stand in international arena?
We always took a realist stand, you know. At times maybe you took little more, little less, but it also was infused with realism. So it's not that you're completely you're talking purely in terms of abstract things like right and wrong. And we made sacrifices also for our principles. For example, when in the apartheid regime in South Africa, we had no relations with them. We shunned them, we criticized them. Even though we had a very huge community there in South Africa, which was Indian origin, and their interests got affected. So we took some principle stand because larger principle was helpful. That decolonization was important. We did not want partial colonization to become an instrument for further or return of colonization. So there was a larger picture we were supporting. So broadly, it's based on sound principles, which is also important because it makes it a little bit predictable. People know how you react to things. Okay, Ankur?
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, Ankur?
Good evening, sir. Sir, I just want to ask that in the global context, like
हमको सूरज नहीं आपको देखना है, ठीक है, आपका चेहरा देखना है. हाँ, yep, good.
Yes, sir. Am I visible?
हाँ, बताइए.
Yes, sir.
हाँ.
Yes, sir. I was asking, sir, in the global context, like mainly the global context has been reduced to what US and China are doing.
You see, that is a major context.
So, do we not?
That is the major context.
Okay.
Which is determining priorities of various countries. I'm not saying this is the only context. I've given some other context also, but this is the major context.
Okay.
Say,
and sir,
if you realize you are not born then, post Second World War, it was communism versus capitalism. That was the global context. And the lines were being drawn on that basis. And hence we created non-line movement saying कि ये लड़ाई आप लोगों के कम्युनिज्म और कैपिटलिज्म की दो ब्लॉक्स के बीच में है. हमें उसमें फंसने की जरूरत नहीं कोई. We don't want to get trapped into that. We have own priorities and our own interests. We want to pursue those. We don't want to make a choice कि मैं कम्युनिस्ट रेजिम के साथ उनका हूं या कैपिटलिज्म रेजिम का. No, we said no. We'll make our own choices. And that is the reason why non-line block was created. But the context in which this happened was very clear. The world was being divided into two blocks. And so either choice was you join one of the blocks or you create something else which will buffer us from this battle of two isms. And hence non-line movement was created. It got so much of credence because even since I've dealt with it, and I was our point person in New York in the late 90s. Non-line movement also. You see, non-line movement gave a small look. India is a large country; it can stand for itself. The smaller countries cannot. They depend upon either US or at that point in time Russia, who have a lot of pressure points on them, and they could always say, "But what to do? This is the non-line movement position. We can't change it. We can't walk out of it." So non-line became in a way guardrails कि भाई हम क्या करें, हम चाहते हैं लेकिन अब क्या करें, बोल नहीं सकते. नॉन-लाइन मूवमेंट में डिसाइड हुआ है कि हम ये नहीं करेंगे या हम इनके साथ नहीं जाएंगे, इनके साथ नहीं जाएंगे. बताइए हम क्या करें. हम भी करते हैं ना. जब आपको कुछ काम नहीं करना तो मैं क्या करूं, पापा ने मना कर दिया है ना, फिर घर वाले नाराज हो जाएंगे, मैं नहीं कर सकता. आप करना नहीं चाहते हैं लेकिन दोस्तों को नाराज नहीं करना चाहते हैं, तो ये बोलते हैं ना, यार क्या करूं, पापा मम्मी नाराज हो जाते हैं, छोड़ दो. हाँ, नहीं आ पाएंगे हम, या सिगरेट नहीं पिएंगे, जो भी नहीं करें. Non-line movement actually gave that structure where even small countries could simply say, but what to do? This is a non-line position.
Yes, sir. And sir, one more.
There was a context, and there were solutions. Then came how to handle that context. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And one more thing, sir. Sir, can we say that the ability of the US to influence the world has been reduced over the period of time, or has been overestimated in the past. For example, sir, in various cases, US has not been able to achieve what it intends to. For example, Afghanistan, 20 years of war, and it has not been able to dislodge Taliban. For example, sir, Syria. In Syria case also, it has not been able to.
So, true. Two things. It's never easy to win wars in other countries. Number two, those wars were not wars forced or inflicted on US. Okay? It was US which went out and fought the war in the belief that they'll be able to sort out this problem very quickly. Without seeing that history has never supported this argument. They got sucked up in Vietnam, they lost. They got sucked up in other countries, they lost. Okay? And they made those mistakes. War in Afghanistan was a war of revenge. Okay? You killed our people, we are going to make an example of you. Which also becomes important because if it goes without any consequences, then people will keep doing this, people will keep blowing your buildings and your aircraft. So you have to make an example that we are going to completely finish that country. That's what they want you to do. Otherwise, the nature of Taliban, it was not Taliban, it was basically the Saudi guy who नाम नहीं ख्याल आ रहा हमको उनकी वजह से हुआ था ओसामा बिन लादेन की वजह से हुआ था Osama bin Laden had been funded by US against the Russians, against the Russian occupation of Afghanistan. And now that same thing with Saddam. It was more personal for Bush because Saddam, according to information he had, was plotting to kill his father, the senior George Bush. And they've also wanted to control the Iraqi oil. Hence, the Iraq war was fought and the results are there. 20 years, there's nothing to show for it, or not much to show for it. Okay, Akash, I think we'll have to move quickly, otherwise, yeah, Akash, quickly.
Sir, I have a couple of doubts. The first thing is that, sir, is with respect to the Ukraine-Russia war, do you think, sir, that US has anything to achieve with its support to Ukraine? And with respect to John Mearsheimer's argument that in future Russia has to be a US ally in order to counter China. So
that would be the argument, that would be the commonsensical argument for all of us to use. And
yes, sir, exactly. But then why?
Yeah.
Do you feel there is any reason why the US is like delaying that?
No, you see, my sense is perhaps they did not expect this reaction from Putin. Number one. Number two, they thought that with sustained sanctions, Putin's regime might collapse. If that happens, then there's a hope that whatever regime comes or whatever regime that they can get there would be US ally. And then this huge chunk of geographical territory, this huge military might, is still one of the world's largest, second largest or largest nuclear weapons state, would then become an ally against China. So that's where, as I said, in war, no calculations work. All that you write on papers, you do all these war gaming, etc. When real stuff happens, it just happens. You don't know what the outcomes would be. And this is where perhaps they went wrong.
And sir, how do you see this war ending?
Out of fatigue. Look, Russia has by and large secured what it wanted to, by and large. Whatever territories they wanted to, Russia had broadly 3 aims, as I would see it. Again, as I said, look at my slide when I said it's unpredictable, it's ambiguous. We don't know what was in Putin's mind. Okay, neither you nor me. We can only guess, we can only assess, we can use our whatever. तो ये possibility हो सकती है, but उसको क्यों किया हम नहीं जानते. उस वक्त क्यों किया हम नहीं जानते. None of us knows it. Even perhaps his closest allies might not know it. So now getting back to what Putin was trying to secure. One, he did not want NATO to come close to his borders. You see, they see things in terms of historical sense. 20 साल बाद क्या होगा? Look, you know, Napoleon has gone to the Russian, has entered Russia with army, and Hitler has entered. They have not forgotten that. You know, those who forget history pay a serious price for it. Russians know it. Germans had come, and before that, Napoleon had come. So they understand that there's a problem in Europe with Russia. So they don't want the NATO to come closer to Russia or to touch Russia's borders. And Ukraine was the buffer. And that's how it was meant to be. And that's how it was agreed. Americans did not keep that part of the deal. And they kept, as I said, they kept pushing the envelope further to see how much, whether maybe they can get away with this also. That's where it is. And they made a wrong bet. Now, number two, look at Russia's geography. The only exit that they have on the southern side to what you can call warm water ports or warm water access is to the Black Sea. And with Ukraine sitting on top of it, on the west of Russia, there was a challenge. So first they took Crimea and they controlled it so that their access remained with them. So they were not sure of it. So what they wanted to secure was that access to Black Sea remains unchallenged, number one. And number two, all the Russian-speaking people got integrated into Russia because they were facing a backlash in Ukraine. They were being forced only to speak Ukrainian, etc., etc. Now, Russia didn't want that to happen. So they wanted to secure two things, two important things. The sea route, Russian-speaking people, and the territory and the contiguity, so that both the Black Sea access and Russian-speaking people were secure. They have so far, by and large, done it. That was done very early in the war. Now it's the West, is particularly the US, wants to make Russia pay a price for it. And they just continue to drag a war because now they don't know how to come out of it. If you come out of it, you lose face. Europeans will not trust them. The other allies will not trust them. And Europeans are their allies. They are NATO allies. So now they're stuck there. What happens? Maybe next elections, presidential elections, or they get fatigued, some face saver that both sides will find. There'll be time for it. I don't know when it will happen. Okay. Look, I think we'll end up only discussing all this. So quick, any specific questions on the things that I mentioned? Very quickly, Darshana, and then Rahul, and then second Rahul.
Good evening, sir. My question is, with the recent Houthi attack on Indian ships, what are the options available for India to further go with the matter?
Look, it was done by a drone. Do you know how much it costs? That drone, how much it costs? Any of you have any idea about it? Less than $400. Kya karenge aap? We are finding ways, but to protect yourself from a 1 kilo drone, the drone's capacity, the drone's weight is 1 kilogram, something like that. It carries a charge which is about 2.5 kilograms of explosives. कितना सा है वो? ठीक है ना? एक छोटी पतंग जितना है. भाई पतंग समझ लिए, थोड़ा पतंग से बड़ा समझ लीजिए. अब उसको आप, how do you shoot it down? So, and on the high seas. So we'll find solutions. Technology provides solutions. Russians have learned some of it. We are learning from how they are dealing with it. We'll find solutions. But this will happen. And it's not directed at India at all. Okay. Rahul Kumar.
Good evening, sir. So my question is, as you said that India will be a very valuable and reliable partner for US. So my question is that, isn't this argument true even for China? Like, won't India be a very valuable and reliable partner for China in times to come? So why is China behaving so aggressively with India? Like, there was modus vivendi, LSE was almost frozen. So why is this aggressive posture from China at this moment of time? Any country with a sound mind will want India to be their partner and like not having such bad relations with a country like India.
As I said, history is full of miscalculations.
Yes.
I mean, now looking back, if Hitler was alive, he must be wondering what the hell did I do attacking Russia. They had secured everything they wanted to, except UK. The entire Europe was under their control.
Yes.
So history is full of miscalculations. This is the ambiguity in which you deal with. And then that's where it is. Now, regarding China, you see, it's not easy for either India or China, particularly China, given the mindset that they always had, that they were the chosen ones,
yes,
the Middle Kingdom, and
Kingdom
then
complex.
all the states nearby were vassalages who should kowtow to what the Chinese want. I mean, that's the only thing they understand. They don't have anything like Vasudeva Kutumbakam in their thinking. You don't understand, we see things very differently. Standpoints are very different. They just understand hierarchy. We don't. We see things differently. Now, maybe their calculation was that keep salami slice by salami slice, keep securing their access to Xinjiang, etc. Okay?
Yes.
That's what they're thinking. And they've been doing it. They've been at it. Slowly, they'll take something and then we'll get angry. And then after 2-3 years or whatever, like Doklam, before that Doklam, Devsang in 2014. This has been happening. It's been going on little by little. One government decided enough is enough and we are going to rough it out.
Yes.
And then what happened there just happened. I mean, as I said, that's the ambiguity and that's the fog of war. You can't calculate everything. It happened.
So collision course with China is inevitable.
So that's up. And China, maybe China, again, as I said, that's the ambiguity and that's the complexity of interpreting others whose mind you've not entered. Maybe they just want to settle with each country, but on their terms. So the 9 dashed lines, this means our sovereignty hai. You guys will have to do what you want, because that's the only mindset they have. That's the only way they have dealt with life. We have not dealt with life like that.
Yes.
We see things, as I said, we see things from very different. Our thinking, the way of thinking is very different. In a way, our software is different. You can't run iPhone on an Android software and vice versa. Just to give you a very simple example. So, you see, the thinking determines how you will react to things. That's how they deal with things. So, this had to happen sooner or later. Whether we can have a modus vivendi, we can have a modus vivendi as long as we keep doing what they want or tolerate what they want. We have said enough is enough. We won't take it any longer. Yet there is huge dependence we have on the imports from China. So it's like America is going to take another 15 years. 10 more PLIs and people like you, bright guys like you, all of you working 70 hours and not criticizing Narayan Murthy when he says work 70 hours a day. And I would say why 70 hours? Work 75 hours a day. That's how you're going to change the fate of the country. अभी से छुट्टी अगर सोचने लग गया तो देश कैसे बनेगा? So it's complex. They thought maybe they'll get away with it, and then as I said, the ambiguity and the complexity of how we reacted, they never factored it in.
We called their bluff this time. Like,
call their bluff, and so it's going to be a long haul, and they're used to it. So they'll keep sitting there, they'll keep building, we'll keep building, in the hope that ultimately, if you remember, in Sumdrong Chu, it took 7 or 8 years before it got sorted out. It took 7 or 8 years before it got sorted out fully. So they're just waiting for us to blink. Or some government will come which might blink.
Yes.
Or some set of circumstances will happen. Maybe we'll have tough time with Pakistan, or maybe in their estimation, US may not back us as much. And then they'll see, and then they'll push. So we'll see where it goes. Okay. Next, anybody, second Rahul, please, and then we get down to next slides. Yeah. Otherwise, you guys will have to wait till midnight. Huh? I have no problems.
Sir, I wanted to ask, like, if in the interview, like, they ask us if our stand on, like, what do you think about the recent Pano controversy or what Canada has alleged? So in kind of question,
let's come to that when we come there. Though I've not covered Canada, but I'll cover it. Or if you want to answer the question straight away.
particularly,
I'll answer the question straight away. Look,
sir,
I've lived in Canada. I was a consul general in Toronto. I've seen all that. I've dealt with all of those.
Yes, sir.
What Trudeau is doing is completely unacceptable. Again, they were getting used to it. India will lump it. India will lump it, and one day they just realized that they're no longer prepared to lump it.
Sir, like
I'm not for a moment suggesting that we kill Niger. Okay, I'm not for a moment suggesting that.
Sir, like I wanted to ask something else. Like in the interview, should we suggest both the government or the EAM are saying in public, or should we state the real thing? Like it's in our national interest and we are willing to do it. If
no, first of all, you don't know about it. Okay.
Like if they say that this is proved, then what will be the impact on it, on our diplomacy, like on our image? Like will it impact our wish guru?
Nothing. Actually, your image might go up because people start fearing you. वो आपने वो हिंदी में सुना होगा ना, वो बिन भय होए ना प्रीत. जब तक भय नहीं होता है तब तक प्रीत भी नहीं होती है.
So sir, can we speak these things in interview, or should we keep very diplomatic?
No, I think you don't have to answer it like this. You have to say, look, which country has not done protected his interest.
Kind of things we can take.
No, which country has not protected his interest, and which country has been completely bound by laws and rules in protecting his interests.
These are the real things that we can say.
That's the harsh reality. That's the harsh reality.
That intelligence agencies do these things to secure our national interest.
The question is, all serious countries do it.
So we can also say these things in interview, right?
Yeah, well, that depends upon you, your conviction on saying so.
Because I
will give you one general advice to all of you.
Yes.
Do not give answers in which you do not believe. Because sooner or later they'll catch up on it.
Yes.
Okay. And they're all real people who have dealt with life, and there might be somebody from the IPS also, for all somebody from the Foreign Office General. We have a member in the UPSC. They all understand it. They have seen it. This is not that we are oblivious to it.
Yes, sir.
So in giving answers, my most earnest advice to you would be, give answers in which you believe, because sooner or later they'll check you out on that. And they'll say, आप खाली खुश करने के लिए कर रहे हैं, या आपको कोई आपका said ना कोई context नहीं है, कोई आपका core thinking belief नहीं है. And they don't want such civil servants. They want people who can think for themselves, people who have certain beliefs and who will pursue those beliefs.
Okay, sir.
So can we move on to the next slide, please? If I've answered all the questions. Okay. So most important thing today is relations with the US. You would have already read all that material that you get from various parts. So I don't have to actually recreate that, because they're just facts which you know as much as anybody else. Perhaps you know more than I know. So broad-based, multi-sectoral, across the board we are working with each other, and which each year you can see it's getting further broadened and deepened and strengthened. But like any other relationship, US pursues his interest, we pursue our interests, and this is understood. Everybody understands it. The trick is to find convergences. The more convergences you build, the more stable the relationship. The relationship can take shocks and can take disagreements when there's huge convergence on a number of issues. So the smart thing is to build as many convergences as possible with as many countries as possible, because that sustains the relationship. And so all that we are doing with US builds, and what US is doing with us. So they are not doing out of sense of charity. They are not doing it a sense of out of supporting India's interests. They are doing what exactly we are doing, promoting their interests. And here the smart thing is that we build convergences where their interests and our interests, promotion of both, go together. So these are some of the things that are happening. I'm sure you read of it, so I don't have to talk much about it. But the kind of dialogue, the kind of intensity, the kind of linkages, the kind of technology now under the ICT program, I mean, phenomenal things are happening with the US. And again, as I said, that's the global context. They want a very credible partner in the Indian Ocean, in this side. At least on one side of China, they want a very strong, very credible partner. And they want to build us up as and when the day of reckoning comes, which could be 10, 15, 20, who knows? It could be tomorrow, for all you know. But I don't think so, because there's so much of dependence that US has on China's manufactured goods that US will be shooting itself in the foot if they try doing it in the next 1 or 2 years. And that's why they need this time, next 10, 15 years, which is a very sweet spot for us. So any question you have on this, if you quickly read this slide instead of my reading it out to you, I'll be happy to talk about it. But otherwise, today there are a very large number of people in US, large number of constituencies in US, whether it's business, whether it's technology, whether it's Indian community, whether the funding the Indian community does, the votes that Indian community gives, which supports and underpins this rapidly growing relationship. I mean, at least 20 or Fortune 100 companies are run by Indians, including some in the top 10. And that's important. Google, for example, just to give you one example, or Microsoft. I mean, those are the most valuable companies in the world. They're being run by Indians. So they play a very important role in shaping the thinking quietly. So any next slide on the US, please, and then we can discuss US if you want. So that's the important part. Look, Biden's approach to China looks adversarial, but like us, he also understands the limitations that US has today because of its huge dependence on Chinese manufactured goods. You can't disrupt your entire domestic economy with a desire to take on China. So they will play the long game, which means, as they say, China plus one strategy. What does it mean? We want an alternative source from where we can procure these things, which will not significantly disrupt our economy when should the American relations with China go in a spiral. Now they would require not just us, but a number of other countries, and including and they're also focusing on domestic manufacturing in the US. And so that's the whole process is going to take at least 10 to 15 years at the minimum. So approach to China looks adversarial, will be complex in the long run, and is good for us. It'll have its ups and downs, it'll have things happening here, there, but long term, next 10, 15, 20-year trajectory, this is where it looks. Except something happens suddenly in China, there's a coup or whatever, I mean. And that's a different thing, but otherwise, that's where it's going to go. Panmun issue is a major stress, but I think it will be contained. The way it's going, I mean, we still had a 2+2 dialogue despite Panmun issue, etc. So it will continue. Because as I said, the larger context is far more important. And US is not an innocent country. I mean, they know jolly well what they've been doing. And they've knocked off God knows how many people. So even if they have a case on this, they understand how countries act and how they've been acting. So I'm sure we'll find a solution to it and get over this stress. This is how I would see it. India's relations with Russia and position in Ukraine are another stress point, but by and large, we have been able to manage it. The fact that in G20, we were able to get a consensus on the entire document, again shows that US understands why we are close to Russia. And they see it as a good thing. I would think so. They see it in a way as a good thing because they don't want Russia to be completely dependent upon China. So That's how I would see it. And for the rest, they'll continue to pinprick you. And we say, but we are your friends, why are you doing it? Well, because they have to then pay a lesser price to us. See, they always see, okay, this is what we'll have to do for India, so India does this for us. So if you can use some influence, some stress points on India, then what they may have to do for India would be less than what perhaps otherwise they would have to do. So they will use these also to keep us off guard, secure some concessions, secure some advantages. That's the game which all countries play. They know how to play it well, and they have the resources to be able to do so. Any question on India-US relations? Yeah, Rahul, but with your video on, please. I want to see your face. Yep.
So I just wanted to ask that how important are the personal relationships between the global leaders while framing foreign policy? Like, does this have an impact? Like, look, the personal relationships between the leaders of the two countries.
Look, it helps. It helps. It's a contributing factor, but I don't think it's a determining factor. It's a contributing factor. If you have a comfort, you trust the other person, you're prepared to do things. Like if you see, and a very clear example would be George Bush, otherwise he was considered to be not as highly educated, whatever, that's the perception. But he intuitively understood that to have good relations with US, to have a strong US, to have a strong India is in US is good.
Yes.
And he cut across the entire bureaucracy for the nuclear deal. We changed lots of things for us. Same objective reality. Clinton didn't deal with it like that. Later on, Obama did not deal with it like that. George Bush did. Each was pursuing his interests and America's interests. But the matter of perception, matter of relationships and trust, which some leaders have with others. It helped us. But it's not a determining factor just because you like somebody's manners or looks or whatever, pleasantries or how nicely they deal with you. You don't give your house keys, no?
Yes.
Somebody is nice to you, you'll give them better, you'll give them a tea and samosa, maybe a sweet also. Somebody is not nice, you'll just give a tea and a biscuit. Okay, but you're not going to give the keys of your house, regardless of how good they are to you. So to that extent, yes, the trust helps. It also helps in discussing things, perhaps putting issues, sorting out issues when there's trust. And that personal chemistry. Have I answered your question? अरे आपका तो चीनी नाम है शोमी भाई, क्यों आप चीनी फोन इस्तेमाल करते हैं? चलिए, हाँ, शोमी जी बताइए. What's your question? Please unmute him. भाई unmute कीजिए ना उनको. Who's handling it, you know?
No,
Sir,
sir,
वो
it was my question.
हाँ.
Okay, sir. Sir, India has, sir, US has been the part of both AUKUS and Quad, but both of their objectives are different. So, what are the apprehensions related to this, and how India has standed on this subject?
Look, India has no. India is a part of Quad, is not a part of AUKUS. AUKUS is a military alliance. Quad is not. Quad is not a military alliance. It's a grouping. AUKUS is different.
But sir, AUKUS has somehow brought nuclearization on the Indo-Pacific area, and India has raised apprehension on that issue.
No. Look, you know, we have historical apprehensions of foreign powers meddling in Indian Ocean. Okay, na?
Yes, sir.
So I'll just tell you one line, which listen very careful because it will help you answer and sort out your own minds. When you're dealing with countries, regardless of friend or foe, it doesn't make a difference. आज का दोस्त कल का दुश्मन आज का दोस्त से तो 50 बार देखा है. Deal with the capabilities, not with the intentions. Intentions can change very quickly. Capabilities cannot be changed very quickly. So in all your defense planning, in all your preparations, you look at what are the capabilities of my friends and my adversaries. So that takes a lot of time to build capabilities. Intentions can change. Iran used to be a very close ally of US. Okay? Till Ayatollah Khomeini threw out Shah. And then they became adversaries. Intention badal gaya dusre leader pe. Everything changed. But important thing is to deal with capabilities. So what we don't want is huge military capabilities of a groupings in Indian Ocean. Unke intention kab badal jayenge, hai na? Ultimately, don't forget that America sent the 7th Fleet during the Bangladesh war to threaten us. है ना? Capability थी, उसकी चिंता थी. Intention से क्या फर्क पड़ता है? Seychelles, whatever may think about you, doesn't make a difference. ना capability तो नहीं है ना उनकी fleet भेजने की आपके लिए. So realistically, when you are helping or when a part of policy making, look at first thing you look at is capabilities क्या है. किससे हमको डील करना पड़ सकता है. What is capabilities? Intentions तो handle कर सकते हैं. So that's the reason. Okay. So we are not overtly opposed to it at all. At this point of time, no, because right now our concerns are China. Chaliye. Our questions done on US. Next slide, please. Russia. Again, it's a really time-tested partnership. Annual summits, 21 have taken place. The 22nd, for which our Prime Minister had to go, hasn't taken place for a variety of reasons. But hopefully it will take place sooner than later. Defense, very close relationship. Your army platforms, your air force platforms, and your naval platforms are all built on Russia plays a very important role on that in your armament. Even today, 60-70% of the armament is of Russian origin. And now we are doing not just buying or license manufacture. We are working with them to come out with advanced technologies. BrahMos is a prime example of it, and it's perhaps the best missile of its class. Now we are working on 5th generation fighters and other things, and the Triumph missile defense system, which is important to secure at least some of your key centers like Delhi, for example, against missile attacks. So, and that's relationship, energy, you already know about it, and nuclear power projects, a lot of it are Russians are making it for us, Kudankulam, all the projects there, for example. And that's an important relationship. And secondly, in this relationship, there are no direct conflicts. We don't share a land border or sea border with Russia. So there are no territorial disputes between India and Russia. And that's important because the relationship is not going to degenerate into choosing मेरी जमीन है, आपकी जमीन है, किसकी है, कौन control करेगा इसको. And Russians have seen that even the Ukraine issue, we have by and large stood by them. You never condemned them, and we stood by them. But they understand we have to secure our interests also. While doing so, we have not hurt their interests at all, and that's important. And Putin has recognized this a number of times. But as the US, as the Russia-China axis becomes closer, the more Russia comes under stress in Ukraine, or because of sanctions and all that, the more stress it will put on India-Russia relations. So that's where good, smart diplomacy will come in handy to manage those relationships. And I think that's the reason why our foreign minister right now is in Russia for a 4-day visit, to keep our options open, to make sure that even if there's a little bit of thawing of US-China relationship, we don't get trapped in between. Any questions on India-Russia relations. Broadly followed it. I've put it in the slides. I'm sure you have better material available with you these days. So any questions? Ekta, you have a question? You put your hand up.
Good evening, sir. Yes, sir. I have a questions for the India-US relation.
Please go ahead.
Sir, right now US has blocked the peace for the ceasefire resolution regarding the Israel-Hamas conflict, and it has also provoked for NATO expansion that has led to a Russia-Ukraine crisis. So US is trying to being morally destabilize the Asian region and prevent the economic and further growth of the Asian region mainly because Russia is a major part lies in Asia and all this Middle East region. So, how should India tackle this, and what should be Indian views on this?
Look, what Russian we are not first of all we are not competing with US for primacy in Asia. We are not there yet. 20 years when you guys are middle aged, perhaps we'll be there, and then you will have to deal with this. How do we handle US's encroachment into what we believe would be our zone of influence? It will happen in 15, 20 years. It's already, you can see the signs. It will happen. Today, that's not an issue. We are not competing with the US of influence in Asia. We are collaborating, we are cooperating, we are working with them. That's what we can do, and that's what we should do. So there's no competition between us and US on this. Whatever competition is there between Russia and Russia, China maybe put together, and US, let them sort it out. You don't want to get trapped into it. We have to make the most of it. So that gives us a 15, 20-year window to simply focus on building our domestic defense capabilities and build our economy to a point where it can't be easily destabilized. Now,
yes.
US position on Gaza attack or attack of Israel or retaliation of Israel on Gaza has actually become a domestic issue now in the US. You can see on campuses, this, that, but more importantly, globally also.
Yes.
You are silent when 20,000 innocent people were killed. Because most of the people, 8,000-9,000 are children. They were not involved in this war. A large number of them women. All normal Palestinians. See, each Palestinian is not Hamas. Okay. And secondly, Hamas was created by Israel.
Yes.
So like all Frankenstein's monsters, eventually they come back to haunt you. And we understand it, history has taught us, but when it comes to doing things, we still end up doing the same stupid things. That you create monsters which then come to haunt you. This is a classic example of it. And now US is caught between friendship with Israel, not to antagonize Jewish lobbies in US, which are very influential. You are stuck. And so in that sense, it has taken a lot of shine off US. All they're temporary. They'll all be forgotten after it's over or whichever way. But that's the reality. What it has also done, and so that's why I'm saying why the Gaza attack happened when it happened. Why it happened, we understand. Basically, the oppression had 2 million people in one of the most congested areas in the world, etc., etc. But why it happened the way it happened, क्यों हुआ? उसका कोई, again, is shrouded in ambiguity and complexity. Was it to derail? If you see the timing, in September at the G20 summit, India, US, France, Saudi Arabia announced the India-Middle East Economic Corridor. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And I don't know if you know about it, but Turkey was working on a parallel corridor on which far more work has been done than what we have done. There's no work done on the India-Middle East Economic Corridor. But Turkey has already made roads up to and the Kasra port, sorry, Basra port has been developed into a major hub. So all the transport corridor will come to Basra, which is the major port that they are building there. There's always a port, but huge port. And from there, roads and rails are being made into Turkey, Iraq, and then Turkey. So now that comes into question. If you create this India-Middle East economic corridor, Suez Canal loses its salience. I'm sure it won't make Egyptians happy. It doesn't make Iranians happy. It doesn't make Iraqis happy because the alternative route that they're making. So we don't know what was the cause. Was this the cause? Was this that what triggered it? Or was it the growing rapprochement between Israel and Saudi Arabia? Now it has all gone to setback because today Saudi Arabia can't go and embrace Israel. They have a domestic constituency. They have a certain Islamic persona. They stood for the Palestinian cause. They can't be now seeing so. So it's been temporarily given a setback. Now, we'll see how it unfolds. Have I answered your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Rahul?
Sir, you just talked about capabilities, like focusing more on capabilities than intentions. Can you elaborate more on what kind of capabilities? Does it include diplomatic relations also, like long term?
No, hardly. Look, the diplomatic capabilities, no capabilities. Diplomatic capabilities play a very limited role.
Like
okay,
countries do put in effort to
let me explain to you what are the capabilities. Your technological capabilities, your defense capabilities, your economic capabilities. Those are important.
But sir, there might be some structural capabilities also, like China,
such as
through human linkages with people. Their assets are also building up. No? So then
so let me answer the question. India was a democracy. Last 75 years, we have been a democracy. And US supported Pakistan in 71. War. They actually sent a 7th Fleet to threaten us. In 65, war was fought with mostly with American weapons by US, by Pakistan.
Yes.
What happened? We were democracies, we were fellows, we understood each other, we understood how democracy works. There was no convergence of interest. The interests diverged.
And institutions like Five Eyes, these kind of things, because they
वो capabilities तो ठीक है, वो तो mainly American driven capabilities हैं, ठीक है ना? But what I'm saying is important are the capabilities. Today, US looks at India in a very different light. And I can tell you from experience, I was in Prime Minister's office when we did the nuclear tests. 98, okay? And it came as a part of the strategic sector, which happened to be with me. So it actually changed the way the world looked at you. They will condemn you. सबने कईयों ने condemn किया, France ने नहीं किया, Russia ने नहीं किया, बाकी ने किया. But even they started looking at you with respect. This is a serious country. The whole world has gone against it. Everybody is making statements, etc., etc. I mean, you couldn't have expected anything else from them. बोले उन्होंने ठीक है, condemn कर दिया, कह दिया अच्छा नहीं है, ठीक नहीं है, सोचना चाहिए था, सब कह दिया. उनको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता ना. Most countries didn't matter to them. हम उनसे लड़ नहीं रहे, हम अपने न्यूक्लियर वेपन पे यूज करने वाला नहीं थे in any case. So it didn't matter to them. But your capabilities changed the game. The world saw you differently. The world saw you as a capable country, which had this capacity to stand up for its interest, even if the whole world ganged up against it. So the world saw you differently, and it changed the game for us.
Sir, my question was in respect to that point you made, na, कि India wouldn't like militarization of Indian Ocean, capabilities which are present in Indian Ocean, militarization of it. So wouldn't India also mind these kind of capabilities developing where China can use these relationships further enhance
China, but China is using it, yeah.
So
China is Hambantota port hai, Djibouti port hai, they are doing it. They are doing it. I mean, there's not only two ports now, the one that they're making in Myanmar. So they are doing it. It's not that they are not doing it, or it's not that we are oblivious of it.
So you meant only the physical hard infrastructure capabilities?
No, hard infrastructure. So there's a part of the capability.
So technology also.
Yeah, technology is the most important capability.
Yes.
As you see now, $400 का drone, $100 million की ship की जान नाकदम कर दिया, and you have to send 4 warships there. Look at the cost of it. 4 warships, none of them costing less than 150, 200, $300 million. इतने से ड्रोन को ढूंढ रही है, ठीक है ना, एक पतंग की साइज के ड्रोन को ढूंढने जा रहे हैं वहां पे, सब काम छोड़ के आपके 4 प्लेन, और अमेरिकन का भी ये हो रहा है. All of them are now finding solutions. How capabilities can impact, how Iranian capabilities in making good drones. So capabilities are the most important thing that you deal with. And I don't know if you know about it, long back, before First World also, UK had, it was an unwritten rule that UK's navy would be superior to the navy of all the European countries put together. Because if you want to rule the world as an island country, उसमें plane तो थे नहीं, navy थी. So the entire focus was on building the navy. Yes. And the navy was larger than the navies of all the European countries put together. That's why they could dominate the world. That was the capability. And it didn't make a difference to them whether Europeans were friends or they were not friends.
So is our diaspora also our capability?
Yeah, but only to a limited extent. It's only influencing some political outcomes.
But Israel uses these kind of things a lot.
Yeah, it uses, but Israeli diaspora is very different in US. Yes. Then and don't forget it. All these things change. In the 1956 war in Suez Canal, when Suez Canal was nationalized by Egypt, you know what was the division? Israel, UK and France on one side, yes. Russia, America and Egypt on one side.
Yes, sir.
Insane. So diaspora, yes, it's a capability, but it's not a hard capability. So next question, Praful, and then we must move on. Yeah.
Sir, I just wanted to ask that, as you said that relations between China and Russia are strengthening. So in this scenario, how should India approach this? Should India adopt a wait and watch approach, or should it be more aggressive and make the relations with Russia more broad-based?
Look, India, first of all, Russia-China relationship does not impact us directly. Russia is not going to gang up with China, at least in the foreseeable future, against India. They will never do it. So whatever problem they will have is with China, not with India. Land border nahi hai, कोई dispute nahi hai. We are not going to go and take over the oil fields or whatever the mineral resources. हमसे क्या problem है उनको? जो होगी चीन से होगी ना, पहले भी चीन से हुई है उनकी problems तो, फिर वापस होगी चीन से ही होंगी. So Russia will never gang up with China against India.
So,
okay, as long as we don't fall completely in the American camp, because then it's basically for that reason, but otherwise they will never do it.
So, but
there's no reason for them to do it.
So, but increased closeness with China might hamper our defense and energy relations with Russia.
So far they have not. They could theoretically, yes. But by doing so, Russia will become more dependent on China. They don't want to do that. They understand it. They don't want to do it. Why would they do it? Like, we don't want to be dependent upon American armament. So we have diversified. Okay. We went and bought the Rafale. We didn't buy F-35. Am I right? We buy some Israeli equipment. We don't buy American equipment, lock, stock, and barrel. Because we don't want to be dependent upon any one country. So our process of Indianization should have been started long back, but we started it now in right earnest. And you see the results in 10, 15 years.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, so can we move on to the next slide, please? Any other question, Russia? Next slide. China. So again, broad contours, you understand the differences, the territory. I don't have to go through that. The slides are available. You can ask them to send it to you. I'm sure you all already have better materials with you. So I'll come to stress issues with China. Support to Pakistan, non-settlement of boundary, increasing footprint in our neighborhood, needling us by attempting to bring Kashmir issue in the UNSC last year, risk of diverting waters from shared rivers, etc., etc. These are all stress issues with China. And the trick is to manage these so it doesn't lead to a serious military conflict, which you would not want. And as things stand, perhaps China also does not want it. Because it diverts his attention from other things. And it further spoils his reputation. It affects his image. So it will be a complex relationship. We are hugely dependent upon Chinese imports. Their trade surplus with India is still increasing. It will take a while before it can be reversed. And partly it will happen when Mr. Shomi stops using Chinese phones and we use either Indian phones or other phones. That's important. I don't buy any Chinese branded good, even if I have to pay 25% extra buying something else. That's the least I can do for my country. देखिए देशभक्ति बताई नहीं जाती, देशभक्ति दिखाई जाती है, ठीक है ना? So you don't want friends who will tell you हाँ हम तुम्हारे साथ हैं. You want them to be seen when you actually want them, and that applies for a sense of nationhood also. So if we as a people just take a decision, will not use Chinese brands, forget about it, because component के आप खोल के नहीं देख सकते हैं. My iPhone has Chinese component. I can't take it out. Finish the brands, you'll give a huge shock to China. So this is completely off there's nothing to do with the interview, but eventually we relate as Indians. Do not buy any Chinese branded goods. Finish their brands, you'll build your own. It'll help you build your own brands. It'll help bring domestic manufacturing capabilities. Just do it. As I said, देशभक्ति बताई नहीं जाती, दिखानी पड़ती है. Just show it. But anyway, getting back to this, it's again like US-China relationship, India-China relationship, or at least on trade, will take decades, at least 10, 15 years before we can reduce this dependence significantly. Today, if we don't stop imports from China, your mobile phone industry, your automobile industry, your electronic components industry, they will all go for 6. So you have to manage that also. So that's where our relationship with China is. But I think it's not going to get, it'll only get more complex as you going ahead. And we'll just have to learn to live with it. We'll have to learn to deal with it deftly, and see how we can ensure that it doesn't erupt into a war or into skirmishes, even skirmishes. Any questions on this? Yeah, Rahul.
Sir, China also understands that India wants to manage these relations so that it can grow. So why wouldn't China make it more expensive for us to manage this piece? It will be very that a war doesn't happen so that its growth also takes place, but it will with time try to make it more expensive for us to keep that peace here. So it will push us to keep that pace because it's the stronger part. So how to deal with that situation? Because the recent Galwan issue and these standoff also shows this kind of trend that it is making it harder for us to keep that issue like on a lower scale, and we have to now focus more towards Himalayas also.
No, you say that. No, I didn't understand what exactly is your point. Your point is not clear to me.
Sir, my point is simply this: that how will India, because China knows that India wants this, so how will India? How should India?
India wants what?
India wants to manage the border issue and doesn't want a full-fledged war with China because
no. Actually, that's what I'm saying. We have changed that. What we have changed is that if necessary, we'll fight to keep the border.
Sir, sorry, sir. India will fight. How?
We are ready to fight if necessary to keep the border where it is. This was not there. This was not there earlier. So actually, we have taken a hard posture on this.
Yes.
Now it's China's call whether it really wants to push us into a war. We are not inching to fight. We are not angling to fight. We know the consequences on the economy. We know that. But if it comes to it, we'll fight it out. That's what we have now made understood to China.
But both the countries do understand that there will not be a war.
How do you know that? How do you know that? You're only presuming this, no? But when you're taking a policy decision, you can't presume this. You can't. Your starting point can't be that there'll be no war. Your starting point has to. Your starting point has to be that in terms of preparations and in terms of diplomacy, we will work so that war doesn't take place. You can't start लड़ाई नहीं होगी, फिर लड़ाई नहीं होगी तो फिर कुछ भी करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. Why are you putting 50,000 people there in Ladakh in winters? अगर ये starting premise ये है कि लड़ाई होगी नहीं, फिर तो कुछ भी करने की जरूरत नहीं थी. That's not the starting point for us as policymakers. The starting point is we must do everything to make sure China understands that war will carry serious consequences for it also. And it may not be worth fighting that war.
We are reciprocating what China has done. So China knows that if we up the scale, then India will up. We haven't done it over China. No? So they know they are in control. If they up the scale, then India will have to. So in proportion terms, if like a percentage of GDP, it will be much more expensive for India to keep that level.
But then you have to understand this thing. You have to understand this thing that when you are attacking a country, you need far superior force.
But they know their intention. At least they know for themselves that they won't be attacking. So they can.
No, I don't know. This is what you are saying they'll attack. I don't know about it.
Sir, I am saying China knows that China won't attack. Like if they are planning this thing and they can put pressure on India and keep raising this troop level. So
no, but it looks so it comes with risks. You see now, let me explain to you. They thought we will not go the nuclear route. We went the nuclear route and it changed the dynamic between the two countries. Now we also have a capacity of weapons of mass destruction. That becomes a card in our hands, which you didn't have till 1998, because they pushed us on that route. Now they pushed us on this route where we have mounted 50,000 people, and we are building defense capabilities. We are building our border infrastructure, everything for that. So it actually raises the stakes for them and raises the cost for them, which earlier did not exist.
So basically, it is about creating deterrence on our own part, sir, to deter China by.
See, absolutely. You see, today we are not in a position to go and wage a war on China.
But still, I feel China does feel this thing that they are more.
Fair point. Look, you are entitled to your view. We are not disputing your view. You are absolutely free to keep your views. Absolutely. And I'm not saying this may not be right view.
Yes,
I'm trying to clarify points. I'm not trying to convince you to change your view. That's not my job.
Sir,
Sir, if it's costly for India, then it's costly for China also. Like,
but they have a larger GDP.
they
But that's
have a
okay.
larger GDP,
So
but
I can't
they
understand.
have.
Rahul, what's your point? I mean, I'm not understanding your point.
Sir, I am saying that whenever China will want, they can de-escalate.
No, you ask me. Look, Rahul.
It is not with us.
Whatever is your view, you are entitled to your views. If you doubt, I'll clarify. You have view, you keep your view.
Doubt
There's
is
no problem
only
about it. I don't see my job to change your views.
No, sir,
Okay.
it's not about view. I wanted to ask, what can India do further to be in a more dominating position?
Yeah, but
Where
we are doing. Look, we are already trying to do it. We are building border infrastructure at a scale at which we never did earlier. We are building defense capabilities. We are equipping our army better. We are doing all that, and also we are trying to make sure, as it is good, as I said, it's a 10 to 15-year haul of trying to insulate our economy from Chinese bans, for example, or that China can play havoc with you. We are starting the process in right earnest now. That's all you can do. That's what we are doing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Avishka, any questions?
Yes, sir. Sir, I want to ask, with Nepal warming up to China, and also with China having, through its checkbook diplomacy, it's trying to attract Bangladesh, and even with Maldives' new government, which is now taking a step back from India. So how do we manage that the friendly relations with neighbors, and we cannot compete with China on economic basis, like by giving such large loans to our neighbors. So, how do we manage that?
We are managing it, no? You see, okay, there is a government in Maldives. Maldives understand where the lines are. Secondly, some of the governments in other countries are bought. They're paid. There's the harsh reality of life.
So, but it is against India's interests, no? Sir,
Fair enough.
how?
Fair enough. So you deal with interest, and the dealing with interest is dam, bhedandan, theek hai na? So use all the four instrumentalities, which would be, I'm sure, tell the Maldives that we won't even need Indian army. We just need BSF to go and take over Maldives. Army की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ेगी हमको. So there'll be message that you want to send. You'll send those messages.
And sir, what about Nepal?
No, Nepal is a complex case. You have to understand this thing. I've dealt with Nepal, Bhutan. I was the head of division.
So you're muted. So you're muted.
Anyways, so see, Nepal wants to play both sides. Secondly, understand this thing, that more than 60% of Nepal votes for communist parties, 60 to 65%.
Okay.
That's what Nepal's democracy has produced. And if you have any sense of our own political evolution, at one point of time, number of states and including the central government, communists played a very important role. Today, they are completely marginalized. I mean, this is a process of evolution of economy as economy became more market-oriented and people started making money. When you are young and when you don't have money, you all become communists. Once you start making money, you change. That's a lesson of life for all of us. So, Nepal mein 60-65% votes go to communist parties.
Okay. So what are the
so in a democracy? So in a democracy, what do? You play one side with the other against the other. So the communist parties have got broken. UML ban gaya. Baburam Bhattara alag ho gaya. Prachanda ho gaya. Now Prachanda wasn't particularly fond of us. Now it's not so. I won't say the friend. I mean, but it's not so. He wants to remain prime minister. He understands India can help him do that.
So, sir, what are the short-term concrete steps we can take to handle the Nepal situation?
No, again,
is there anything?
No, that's what I'm saying. You just look, don't get into who's going to govern what. We can't determine our own country is going to govern us. है ना, आप और मैं तय नहीं कर सकते हैं ना.
हाँ जी.
वो तो लोग जो तय करेंगे वो लोग तय करेंगे. वहां भी लोग तय करते हैं सरकार कैसी आएगी. You have to secure your interests. You have to make clear what your red lines are.
And we have to find common ground also.
Sitting in Delhi, we can't determine that Prachanda Prime Minister बनेगा, बाबूराम बनेगा, देवबा बनेगा या कौन बनेगा, है ना? हम तो नहीं तय कर सकते ना, करना भी नहीं चाहिए.
नहीं.
अरे आप और हम थोड़ी दांडी तय कर सकते हैं अगले इलेक्शन में क्या होगा. अपने मुल्क में नहीं कर सकते, दूसरे मुल्क में कहाँ जाकर करेंगे. So you just secure your interest, and again, securing of interests is साम दाम भेद दंड.
ठीक है सर. Thank you sir.
हमारे साथ दोस्ती से काम करेंगे, हम आपको मदद करेंगे, नहीं करेंगे तो हम मुंह मोड़ लेंगे. Will become a nuisance also if required, है ना?
हाँ जी.
So that's what you do, and you tell them भाई हमारे लिए क्या important है, वो नहीं होना चाहिए.
ठीक है.
बाकी if you want to run your country, you want to loot your country, is your business, not my business. Ultimately, Maldives में क्या हुआ? The people who have now come are the ones जिनको जानने वाले who taken a lot of money from Chinese, the personal capacities. ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट दे दिया, वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट दे दिया, पैसा ले लिया. अब दिस वाज नॉट ऑब्जेक्टिव डिसीजन टेकन. उनको पैसा बनाना था, बना लिया उन्होंने. मुल्क का क्या होगा देखा जाएगा. दे डोंट केयर अबाउट इट लाइक इन सो मेनी अदर कंट्रीज.
Yes sir.
Okay. Harshil.
Thank you sir.
Good morning sir. Good evening sir. Sir, I want to add in Aviksha's question that how India is balancing various multinational group. On one hand, recently BRICS में Saudi Arabia and Iran got added. We have SCO. On some lines, we are against from China, but our strategic interest and economic interest sometimes don't converge. How India is balancing the fact that?
Look, economic interests are part of strategic interests. है ना? So as I explained to you, idea is not to fight a war with China. Idea is to contain the problem and then find some solution to it. That's the smart thing to do. War will only lead to another war at some stage in the future. That's not objective. So objective is to first tell China thus far and no further. You can't, that's what, will not take it anymore. And thereafter you see how you can then deal with them in a manner that makes sense to them and where you can build the convergence of interests.
Sir, one more question. India's relation with Iran and India's relation with Middle East countries. How we are balancing that?
No, so we don't have to balance those interests. We have interest with Iran. We buy their oil. अब थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है, but खरीदते थे oil उनका, काफी खरीदते थे. We are working with them. We made Chabar port. We want to take it to Central Asian republics. It's operational now. Doesn't have much traffic because of sanctions and all that, but it's all operational now. There's a convergence there. There's a convergence on Afghanistan. Because ultimately, the Hazaras and the Shias are people with whom Iran works very closely. They're all Shias. Okay, what was Northern Alliance? It was the people who are all against Pashtus. And we worked with Iran very closely during Northern Alliance, when the Northern Alliance was there. And eventually, it will happen again. You see, no matter how the cards are played, eventually Iran understands that it will have to go and protect the Hazaras and the Shias and the Tajiks. आगे पीछे करने पड़ेगा. They may also deal with Taliban, but they understand eventually it is not going to run for too long. उनके मदद करने कौन आएगा वहां पे? साथ कौन चलेगा? रशिया और इंडिया. ठीक है ना? Don't expect Pakistan to go against Shias and the Pashtus. 20% of Pakistani population is Pashtu. So there are some fundamental realities which will not change. No matter what current issues are. ठीक है ना? And secondly, we are not doing anything to harm Iran. See, if you build relationship with Saudi Arabia, it's in our interest because we want the oil, we want the resources. We have about what, over maybe 2.5 million Indians working there. हमारे हित में ना, we are not arming Saudi Arabia to attack Iran. So Iran understands this, that we are not hurting their interest, only promoting our interests. And we are willing to do that with Iran either. We are doing that with Iran also. Have I answered your question? So yes, it doesn't become this is not a zero-sum game. It can't always be in all relationships, can't be either you're with me or against me. Mostly it's gray shades. But even today, your trade deficit with China is $100 billion, despite the fact that हमारे 22 जवान मारे गए थे गलवान. आपने import तो बंद नहीं किया ना? क्योंकि smart thing is to make the other guy pay the price. You end up, you don't carry the can that the entire price is paid by you for that hurt. जब वक्त आएगा तो देखेंगे उसको. ठीक है ना? You get the point? So, next slide, please. Any other question on China? Next slide, please. So I thought I'll just touch upon 2-3 current issues which might come because they just happened. G2 summit was a very important summit for us. First time we hosted it. And again, it was themed, as I said, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which was translated in English for easy understanding of others, was in one earth, one family, one future. And we put in tremendous amount of effort. And we, in a way, democratized G20 in the sense that we involved AU, we got AU membership in the G20, so AU represents 55 countries. And again, this was our way of becoming a bridge between the global South and the North. See, in some ways we are North, in terms of technological capabilities, in terms of some absolutely extraordinary individuals that we have in science, technology, research, and a very large poor population also. So we are both the South and the North. So we are perfectly positioned to act as a bridge between global North and the global South. And it's in our interest that the global South develops and develops fast. It's in our interest. And hence, we put in tremendous amount of effort in this, and some very good outcomes. First was the very fact that we had a consensus document was a tribute to our both our diplomatic capabilities as also the kind of personal relationships that our government and our leaders have built, where they would not do things easily to hurt us, or so they went along with it. Barring Putin and Xi, all the important heads of state and government came, which was important. And the key outcomes were, important thing was EU was included as a member of G20. On climate change, there was emphasis on providing $5.8 trillion in climate finance. It's not going to happen easily, but at least we are able to focus attention and try and push the agenda on that. The whole argument of life, lifestyle which is healthy for environment also, it doesn't impact. We were able to promote those ideas. Launch of Global Biofuel Alliance was again something very important because fossil fuels say to wean away the world from fossil fuels, debt relief for poor countries, reforms of international institutions, including multilateral development banks, etc. A large agenda was pushed forward. And the number of stakeholders was increased. And that's important because perhaps this expanded G20 could become a very potent forum for some serious economic changes. It will have to be pursued. It's going to take a lot of time. But at least we have done our work of what we could. So it was something of which all Indians can be very proud of. In a way, it was democratizing and bringing to attention of large populations who otherwise don't follow summits, who just see as a tamasha, who just see it as a big event where only heads of state and governments come. Next slide, please, and then we can take questions thereafter. Yeah. COP28 was another event which just ended earlier this month. Again, you see, climate change, and by and large, there's broad understanding, by and large, except some like Trump, who doesn't actually believe that there's a climate change or global warming is happening. But most science points to this. So it was agreed to transition away from fossil fuels in a just, equitable, and orderly manner. See it like this: you are dealing with complex partners with very, very different and diverse interests. Those who are suppliers of coal would like to sell coal because that's what they have to earn. And those who have oil and gas want to sell oil and gas. Yet there are others who see that extensive use of this will hurt them the most and the fastest. And when they have no say on this matter, are, for example, the small island countries. Global warming will first hit them and hit them the fastest. So we have to find a practical solution where everybody could walk together, not necessarily the fastest possible speed. So that was COP28. Now, important thing to note here is that it was restated the goal of global net zero by 2050. Now, India has already announced in the Paris Agreement that it will do by 2017, not by 2050. So maybe some other countries will have to do it before 2050. So when India completes by 2070, the deficit of India is met by other countries. We'll see where it goes. The creation of a loss and damage fund, which is about $700 million, that's taken shape. G20 language of tripling global renewable energy and doubling energy efficiency rates by 2030 have been agreed. Again, they've been brought here. Mere declaration of a global climate finance framework, because this is a complex issue. Who's going to pay for it? So everybody wants good things to happen, but nobody wants to pay for it. So it can't happen. And it's a hard, long haul. It will take time, but some of it is taking place. I think $12–13 billion have been committed. Lots of countries have committed that. Some of them are saying, okay, they spend the money domestically, like India. We are the rate at which we are building our renewable, particularly solar energy generation, is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, almost unparalleled. We are doing that. So, and in a way, we are contributing to solutions. So a lot of action is required, but appears unlikely at this stage that we can cap temperature increase by 2 degrees centigrade also. Forget about 1.5, which was the earlier objective. So that's the summing up of COP28. Important thing to note is this is not a legally binding agreement. The legally binding agreement negotiations will take place when each country, as they call, nationally determined targets. The next round will happen in 2025, and we'll see what kind of commitments the major polluters, large-scale polluters in terms of per capita, what commitments they take. So we'll see where it goes. But it's being advanced, not perhaps as fast as a lot of people would like it, but it's in the direction. Next slide, please. So Gulf and Middle East region, because we already discussed what happened in Gaza, etc. So I won't put much emphasis. I won't repeat it. But just to simply say that Gulf is the largest trading partner of India, home to 8 million Indians, largest source of energy, potential to become the largest source of investments also, and enormous amount of work has been done to build relationship with these countries, strengthen relationships. And I think the kind of focus I've seen being given to Gulf, I had never seen it in the past. There are always stress issues, internal disturbances in these countries, treatment of Indian labor, always a tricky issue, growing Saudi-Iran discord, which one thought was getting thawed a few months back, but I think after Gaza, we don't know where it's going to go. And intra-GCC strife, which is Qatar on one side and the other GCC countries on the other. All those will remain, they'll keep happening. But the thrust is very clear that India's relations with all the Gulf GCC countries is very, very strong, and it's going to continue to develop further. Next slide, please. Pakistan, right now there's nothing happening with that in that relationship. because we rightly have refused to talk till they stop using terrorism as an instrument of state policy. And then, of course, Imran took position that till we don't revert 370, he will not talk to us, and which we are not going to do. That's pretty sure. So maybe the next elections in Pakistan might create some possibility for some thawing of relationship. But I think with Pakistan, my sense is it's going to be just a management of relationship and management of not allowing the difference to go completely out of hand for the moment. The capability disparities, the economic disparities between India and Pakistan increasing so fast that just because, I mean, Pakistan will become is almost become just a nuisance, and nothing more. Yeah, Ashik, your question? Yes, please, Ashik. Could somebody unmute him?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Sir, my question is about the radicalization of youth in India. Is there any relationship with the Gulf migration?
Radicalization of Indian youth.
And the
yes,
relationship.
Yes, some of the funding that comes from the Gulf has been used for radicalization. That's
okay,
true.
so is there any initiative by India to solve the issue?
No, you see, what you've done is we have tightened the way foreign funding can come into India and how it's used. So now, I think it is like 2 or 3 years back, all remittances into India from abroad, which are donations, not purchase and sale of things, can only be brought in through a separate account in State Bank of India, Parliament Street, New Delhi. Earlier, any bank could do it. Now it's all stopped. So everything has to come through that one branch of one bank. And they've reviewed FCRA approvals, which permits you to take foreign funding as donations. That has been cancelled in a large number of cases where there was opacity in the way the money was being used, or the objectives were inimical to our interests or not justifiable. So that's what is being done in terms of funding. For the rest, in a world today where you can connect with anybody through internet, WhatsApp, whatever, it's never an easy task. So in part, de-radicalization would be domestic affair. To create more jobs for people, to create better education, to make sure that people see the country as it is, not get their vision does not get tainted by what outsiders have to say about it. But certain elements will always remain. So that's the thing, and it's a game which you just continue to play every day, every morning, every evening. There's no stopping it. Yeah.
Sir, another question is about India's response to the Palestine-Israel issue as a balanced one. Will such a stand affect India's relationship with the GCC countries?
Look, so see it like this: we were not the first to start diplomatic relations with Israel. It was the Islamic countries which did that. Fine.
Yes, sir. Yes.
We have supported the Palestinian cause. We have never opposed it. Not then, not now. Ultimately, most of Islamic countries, the OIC countries, have some kind of relationship with Israel. Some very close, others not so close, but they have it. So how can they tell us not to have a relationship with Israel? And so your relationship with Israel should not impact the Palestinian people and the Palestinian cause. That you ensured. We support all the resolutions regarding Palestine, which you are doing historically. But that doesn't come in the way of close bilateral relations. Ultimately, our government's job is to first and foremost serve India's interests. And we are managing both quite well. Have I answered your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Nitish?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Nitish, can I see your face also, please?
Sir.
Yep.
Sir, as far as the things going on in our immediate neighbors, to name a few, like what's going on in Bangladesh right now regarding the election. The party which is in power right now, we have almost a good relation with the Bangladesh. We have maintained a good relation, and the point of contention would be there if the other party comes into power. So, if in such turbulent countries, sir, should we also interfere in their elections, like superpowers does on a regular basis?
Look, it's when you
Because
want to.
sir, last. Because sir, ultimately, whatever happens there, it is going to affect us in a way or the other way, sir.
So
securing our borders, having a refugee crisis.
No, I understand all that. I understand all that. I understand all that. So that answers are multiple. First, see, can somebody sitting here tell me today which party is going to win the next elections? We can't. We can only make a guess. So if you and me can't control what's going to happen in India, what chance in hell do we have to control what's going to happen in some other country's elections? It's not easy. All I'm saying is not easy.
Yes, sir.
To either control or to predict.
Sir.
You look at the 3 state elections. If you look at the polls earlier, opinion polls and all that, and the outcomes are so different. So one has to address this with sense of humility. With this little sense of humility, elections will work the way they have to work. Number one. In the past also we have dealt with Khalida Zia when she was in power. We dealt with it. निकेता का माइक बंद कर। So we have to understand this. So
yes,
idea is to build convergences.
Yes, sir.
Build so many networks of interest that no matter what government comes,
yes,
they understand that disrupting the relationship is not going to be easy.
Yes,
not because India will get angry, but your own people will get angry.
Sir.
Today, we are the largest trading partner of Bangladesh.
Like, sir, whatever happened in Myanmar, the Myanmar is undergoing a turbulent phase of time. This is indirectly impacting us as well, sir. We could see in the terms of Manipur crisis, refugee from Myanmar is one of the key factors in having a issue in Manipur, sir.
Yeah.
So, yes, sir. So shall we take a proactive approach even to secure our national interest?
Two things. What makes you feel we are not taking proactive approach? That's number one. Number two, you must also understand the limitations of these approaches. Ultimately, Manipur happened in India, ना? जो मणिपुर में हुआ था अभी, वो तो मेती जोन के बीच में, तो ये हुआ था ना, इंडिया में हुआ था. Could we control it? Could we stop it from happening? Answer is no. It still happened.
Yes, sir.
And this is not the first time. We keep seeing it every day.
Yes, sir.
If not every day, every once in a while.
Yes, sir.
So my point is, if you can't control things in your own country,
sir,
what chance do you feel that we have of going and controlling other countries? It's not. So as I said, जो solve कर सकते हैं, solve करने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए. What you can control, what you can manage, what you can insulate yourself from. We do it, and we continue to do it. We'll continue to do it.
Yes, sir.
But we also have to understand that things will still happen, and we'll have to deal with it as we go along.
Yes, sir.
So
we should.
That's the only way it can be done.
Sir. So we should have a wait and watch approach, sir. In that particular.
No, I'm not saying that wait and watch approach.
Sir.
See, wait and watch, though you've left the fate in somebody else's hands. So what I said is, you build network of linkages, network of interests,
sir,
which for any government. And look at a classic example right now. India, China.
Sir.
Your trade dependence, your technology dependence, your exports, imports are so important that you can't disrupt it. You don't want to disrupt it. Or US-China relations.
Sir.
They don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. They understand the consequences.
Sir.
So while they'll try and push each other.
Yes, sir.
They'll not disrupt it. So that's what we want to do with other countries also.
Yes, sir.
Where if next government comes and disrupts trade with India,
Yes, sir.
the first thing that will happen is Bangladesh's textile industry will take a big hit.
Yes, sir.
Because raw material goes from India.
Yes, sir.
So all the people who are invested in textile industry will tell the government to back off here. जो बातें करनी करो आप statement दो, but don't affect this trade. हमारा सारा प्लांट बंद हो जाएंगे, unemployment हो जाएगी, है ना?
Sir.
Yeah. So you got your answer.
Thank you.
Anupriya.
So my question is, so why is India wary of joining any military alliance? And going forward, do we see there is any possibility that India might join any military alliance in future to hedge itself maybe from China's threat?
See, देखिए ऐसा military alliance का the risk of getting into military alliances, then you have to participate in wars which you may not be interested in participating. Okay. If you're alliance, you can't say कि जब जरूरत तो आप आ जाना मेरे को बचाने के लिए, आपकी प्रॉब्लम हुई तो मैं नहीं आऊंगा वहां पे. That's an unworkable proposition, ना? ठीक है ना? So you don't have to get into military alliances.
Yes, sir. Then the answer to China's threat is again, as you have mentioned, to make yourself indispensable.
Yeah, so you already are indispensable for US. Please understand this thing. You are indispensable to the US. So you don't have to have a military alliance with them. You don't have to enter a war with China because US decides to go for war. As a friend and a partner, we'll take a call, whether it's worth our while or not.
So then it is in India's interest to not join any military alliance.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So, and that's why we have not been a party to any military alliance. But short of it, we signed a treaty of peace and friendship with and security with Russia.
Sir, one more question.
Huh.
Sir, also in case of like economic partnership, see that India engages in like FTA with countries, etc. But it does not engage itself proactively in trade multilateral partnership. Like it backed out from RCEP, and also it did not join trade pillar of IFS. So
look, it's very simple. You join trade pacts where you think you'll get more than what you give. If I have to give more than what I get, what's in it for me? And this is what happened. Actually, if you know why our electronic industry did not develop, was because of trade pact we had with ASEAN countries, which allowed easy import of televisions and other things. So सब वहाँ जाते थे, Thailand जाते थे, and actually I don't know if you know about it, but it was almost a thriving trade. People give you a ticket to go to Thailand just to bring back a TV. कि थाईलैंड जाइए 2 दिन का स्टे फ्री है, ये एक टेलीविजन साथ में लेके आना है बस. So your electronic industry did not develop. So if you do something, look, it will always be a give and take. But then what you give has to be less than what you take. Otherwise, what are you doing for? You see, don't have to have trade agreement for sake of having agreements. You see what's in it for us. And that's why we did not join RCEP. It would have been a route for further Chinese imports into India. It made no sense to us. We already seen what happened with our trade pact with ASEAN. We just didn't allow our electronic industry to develop.
So, like then in case of ASEAN, like I read a news a few days ago that India is planning to like go into negotiations with respect to FTA with ASEAN because of huge trade deficit. So, like what can we do to narrow down this trade deficit with the countries we have FTA now?
Look, I don't think it's a question of trying to reduce trade deficit one country or another country. You don't see it like you see it as the totality of it. Whether in totality will you be able to export more than what we import? है ना? 1:1 तो हो नहीं सकता है. If you're buying bulk of oil from Iraq, there's no way you can export $30 billion worth of goods to Iraq. You don't manufacture those things. But overall, you see whether will benefit or not.
Thank you, sir.
We can enhance our export basket far more than our import basket. That's what you want to do. Huh? Yeah, Himanshu?
Hello, sir. Sir, my question is regarding the general Indian foreign policy. Like, how relevant is the Indian foreign policy with regard to domestic Indian politics?
No, that's the question I must ask you. How would I answer this question? I already explained to you. Look, I already explained in the first 2 slides the relevance of why foreign policy is important.
Sir, I wanted to ask, like,
Look,
how
foreign
the
policy. Look, please understand, foreign policy is nothing but extension of domestic policy. What is it? That's why the first 2 slides are very important. Read them again. The purpose and objective of foreign policy is to promote your economic progress and development, and secure your other interests, whether it's territorial integrity, whether it's food security, whether it's energy security, whether environmental. That's what it does.
Yes, sir.
So foreign policy is just an extension of your domestic policy, securing your domestic interests.
So, sir, does the change in the government have a huge impact on the foreign policy?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because if the foreign policy is based on pursuing India's interests don't change with each change of government.
Right, sir.
है ना? तो core interest तो वही है ना? India's safety, ability to import more, oil security, food security, कोई भी government आगे ये चाहेगी ना? और क्या चाहेगी वो थोड़ी कहेगी हमें oil security नहीं चाहिए, हमको energy security नहीं चाहिए. कौन सी government कहेगी ये? और चाहेगी क्यों? Except कोई देशद्रोही government आया तो बात अलग, wants to destroy India from inside, then it's a different issue. Otherwise, each government will want that. So nuances may change. The way you conduct foreign policy may change. The importance you give to foreign policy may change. That could happen.
Okay.
But the basic thrust won't. Yep. Yeah, Rahul.
Okay,
Sir,
thank you, sir.
Thank
a
you.
last one
Yeah, Rahul.
that somebody asked before. Doesn't being in an alliance ensure that war doesn't happen, like USA says, peace through strength? And like if we are able to develop something sort of a NATO alliance here, so we won't with Japan, Australia, US, then if China attacks us or Japan, so China will know na, that war will be with India, US. So will that not stop the war at its first place?
No, I don't know. I mean, see it like this. They had agreement with NATO. Ukraine signed agreement with the US in 2021. Okay? And it led to war in 2022. If they had not signed an agreement with US, Ukraine, the war would not have taken place.
But security was not that of NATO's level, like mutual.
No, but what I'm saying is it was almost a defense pact.
Yes, sir.
And it led to war. It didn't prevent a war.
And then the question of reliability of alliance.
No, secondly, do you want to go and fight a war that America decides to fight, for example? Or if you have a military pact with Russia, do you want to go and fight in Ukraine? And if not, then they'll say, look, if you don't live up to our agreement, our defense agreement, why should we come to your rescue when you need us?
The USA is a hegemon, so it will be at its top list.
So what do you want to do? You want to become a doormat of a hegemon or what? US will not fight a war for you till they want to fight a war. So why do you want to fight a war for US?
Even if it is in, so reliability of alliance is not secured. Even if
that's what I'm trying to explain to you. We had no defense cooperation with US. Yet in '62 war they helped us. It was American planes, American materials, everything came.
So you are saying with alliance also we can get help because of diplomacy.
No, that's a. I'm not saying there's a lesson of history.
Yes, sir. And sir, second question on Maldives, like what went wrong? Like you said that we should try to develop.
No, nothing went wrong. Nothing went wrong.
Deep relationships, so that even
look,
if
you know, the previous president, not the one who lost the election, but the one before that, had been bought over by China. for sake of money. That's it. And this is not the first time it has happened. It won't be the last time. You look at so many African countries who have done these deals because there were personal benefits. Nothing to do with their country's interest.
So those dependencies won't work here. Positive dependencies.
Look, it's not a question of dependencies. It's just a question that if your way of taking a decision is convoluted, what can I do about it?
Yes.
See, if as a leader you decide to take decisions which are against your interests of the country, you'll take those decisions because you've been elected.
Yes.
Yes. So if within your own country, some of the parties say Article 370 ठीक नहीं है ना? You see it every day in your own country.
Yes, sir.
So why are you so surprised when you see it in other countries? And we are still an evolved democracy. फिर भी होता है ना?
Yes. At the end of the day, a leader can be bought even if there are others.
Why are you surprised? I mean, have you not heard of this? This is the first time it is happening in history.
Yes, sir.
So you have your answer. Should we move to the next slide, please? Yeah. Okay, Sri Lanka, again, I won't go into it. By and large, you understand there are no flashpoints right now. So I really don't see any questions being asked directly, except if you take the interviewer in that direction, then it's a different issue. And that's a skill that all of you must have. To be able to take the interviewer to the point where he'll ask questions where you're well prepared to answer. And so your answer should carry the hook, which some of them will bite, knowing fully well that you're putting the hook, and some of them will bite unwittingly. And I'm saying from enough experience of giving interviews. So that's up to you. So these are some points on Sri Lanka. Again, the previous governments, see it like this. All small neighbors are always worried about the large neighbor. And this applies to every country. You look at ASEAN countries, they want to have good relations with US, they want good relations with India. Vietnam has just bought an Indian military frigate on a line of credit. Now some of them want BrahMos, some of them want our equipment. That's the nature of things. That their borders are with China, they are with China. We don't share borders with most ASEAN countries except Myanmar. We don't share border with anybody else, at least the land border. So that's the nature of things. It will happen. And each will play, each will use it. And we don't have to get too frightened about it or too paranoid about it. So Sri Lanka, same issue. They got a lot of money. Some of the politicians made a lot of money. And so they created Hambantota port, all kinds of infrastructure, a huge airport there, which nobody uses, huge port, which nobody uses. And now the lessons are being learned by other countries. So many of them, so you can see, now Belt and Road Initiative is actually slowly fraying away. Because they have seen what happens if you don't repay the loans. And most countries don't want that to happen. But again, there are politicians and some of them put their personal interests ahead of their national interests. And they'll still sign those deals. So next slide. Next slide, please. Bangladesh, again, we have discussed this. I've given some of the important points. You see, the main problem with Bangladesh would be if there is a change of government, Hasina goes, then perhaps there'll be some issues. More importantly would be the Indian actions against illegal migrants and the growing Chinese presence. Look, if China gives good loans, cheap loans, lots of loans, every politician would like to take it. Because they can make more roads, they can make more ports, they can make more bridges, whatever else. They'll do it. And we don't have to get into a bidding war with China. We have to be smart about how we use our strengths rather than trying to copy China, because we just don't have those resources and we don't have those capabilities. And so we must play our game on our playing field. And it's possible to do it. And we are trying to do it. Next slide. Nepal, same issues. I said, they want to have the best of both the worlds. They want to take money from China, they want to take money from India, and of course, like all politicians, some of them benefit from it also. This will continue. We just have to learn to deal with it. And we are dealing with it. So that's not it's not something we are not doing. We have been doing it and we'll continue to do it. And we have our friends and we have enough cards to play in Nepal. So it will happen. Yes, please. Next slide. Africa is important. It's receiving a lot of focus from us. It's a huge continent, large population, enormous amount of natural resources, not enough stress of population in terms of per square kilometer, number of people. All that's there. We have invested hugely, particularly Indian private sector. Now we have given one line of credit of $10 billion. We'll have the next India-Africa summit. It was to take place this year, but I think there's so many summits, it got a little delayed. But all this will happen, and increasingly Africans are understanding that we are non-demanding, non-prescriptive, and our partnership and our friendship is a win-win for both sides. And so we carry far more credibility today in Africa than we ever did. And now we have Indian community in practically every African country, and huge Indian business interest. But I mean, you go to any country in Africa, you'll see it there. I mean, for example, Malawi, the world's biggest producer of macadams is the Indian company, as an Indian actually. And this would apply to Senegal, the biggest employer and the biggest enterprise that is owned by an NRI. And I'm talking of countries which are not traditionally the East African countries where we had a huge footprint. So our salience is increasing in Africa. It's receiving a lot of attention. It will continue to get attention, and we'll see a lot of good things happening with Africa. Next slide. European Union, look, I mean, you know, the relationship is stable. They have been prescriptive in some ways. But I think after Ukraine, after COVID and Ukraine, Europe is seeing its salience losing. They're grappling with serious economic difficulties within their own countries. The manufacturing is slowly disappearing. The budgets are just gone haywire. It's in a bit of turmoil. It's in a bit of transition, which I don't think they're coping well with. You'll see a lot of right-wing governments coming in Europe. You'll see a lot of dislike for migrants, etc. More difficult situations for migrants. This all happen. But it is a very important partnership for us, both for investments and for technology. So the relationship will continue to receive a lot of attention. And we'll always keep receiving some brickwares and some pinpricks from Europeans. We know how to handle them now. Now we handle them upfront rather than in a circumspect manner, like telling them where they get off when they were telling us not to buy Russian oil, for example. I'm just giving one example. Next slide, please. East Asian Pacific, again, it's this huge Buddhist linkage, Hinduism. If you go to most Asian countries, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Japan, Indonesia, Malaysia, huge footprints of our civilization. They are East Asia is the rising economy. And if China doesn't do something very, very stupid, then it will continue to remain so. And we are giving a lot of attention to East Asia, particularly Japan, relations with Korea, relations with Indonesia, and relations with Vietnam. They receive a lot of attention and a lot of support. Next slide. Quad, again, you are familiar with it. It's not a military alliance, but it has the makings of what could eventually become a military alliance. It depends upon how China would behave and how. So it's all part of it is game of smokes and mirrors. You create this illusion of four countries coming together without a military alliance, but with the potential and doing things which are like joint exercises, etc. And that's something which is interesting because at some stage, other countries may also want to join it, join Quad, and that would be at the minimum as a good pinprick for China. But again, see, all these countries in Quad have very close economic links with China. US largest importer it comes from China. Same would apply for Australia. Same would apply for Japan. So it's not easy for them to, as for us, it's not easy for them also to upset the apple cart. But they understand the dangers that China poses and finding common solutions. Some common solutions, some, as I said, smoke and mirror game. Next slide. Next slide, please. अभी शीर्षासन तो नहीं करेंगे ना चलिए United Nations. So I think the only two important issues in United Nations when we will become a member of Security Council, I don't know. I've been hearing this when I was in the UN from 1999 to 2002. Nothing much has changed from discussions to text-based negotiations. I really don't see it happening easily. That's for sure. So I really can't say. I can't, honestly say it's going to happen. Yet, it's important for us to play the game. It's important for us to keep our candidature alive and to keep pressing for our candidature, because if you want to join, then you have to make that effort. So you have to continue to make that effort, knowing fully well it's not going to be easy. For the rest, we are a very active member in the UN. What we say is heard. We win most elections very easily, and our voice matters there. Not just in the UN, but also a lot of countries follow or take cue from what India is doing. Next slide. Diaspora, again, you are familiar with it. Increasingly, what was a complex relationship earlier, where Indians would look at diaspora as those guys who had got educated at the cost of public and gone and forgotten us, and diaspora looking at their country of origin as a country full of no do-gooders who can't do anything, couldn't put that together. Now that's completely changed. There's a very close proximity, interest, convergence, appreciation by diaspora of what we are doing in India, and we are equally appreciative and supportive of what diaspora is doing in India for us. So you can see a lot of good things that are happening, that diaspora is contributing to in India, and this will only continue to grow as our diaspora in other countries continues to rise, and this applies to most countries. So we have expanded our formal engagements with diaspora, Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, regional Pravasi Bharatiya Divases, then the person of Indian origin parliamentary conferences, etc., etc. Next slide. Okay, so this is the conclusion. India's prestige is rising, so is its reach. Relations with neighbors, a mixed bag. Pakistan-China axis is working hard to stymie us in the neighborhood. Relations with US and some major powers in Asia who feel threatened with China are growing. Relations with Gulf countries witnessing significant development. Relations with Russia will require delicate handling, and US-China relations will also have implications for us. So that's the conclusion. Yes, Avishka, you had some question. Thank you. That's over now. You can put it off. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Now I'll answer all the questions that you may have quickly. Yep.
Sir, like you mentioned about Indian diaspora helping out cause. So sometimes the Indian diaspora, like they speak against the country in, say, in J&K issue, or right now, some of them are representatives in US. They are condemning India's threats to Pannu. So how do we handle that?
Look, so it's like this. A lot of people in India also oppose Article 370 or CA. Why are you surprised if somebody in diaspora also opposes it? You see, it's a matter of, at times it's a matter of belief. Your beliefs could be wrong, but you're not. But you believe that what you're doing is good for India. So some of them actually believe that having Article 370 is good for India, abroad or in India. In India also, no? You saw in the parliament debate. So I think we should not. So in part, we have to build a capacity for explaining our point of view better. In part, some ignoring them. Some who are rabidly against the government, and so who do anything or say anything purely with the intention to hurt the government, but ending up hurting the country. You follow? That will happen. That's the nature of things. You just have to accept it, that some of them will do these things. Because some of the constituencies where they come from, they need support of others.
Yes, sir.
So some of the positions that the US senators or those elected take there is drawn from what the voters want.
Yes.
Not because they are opposed to India, but because their voters want them to oppose India. And they have to win the next election. They don't care about what happened. Trudeau is a classic example.
Yes.
Oh, हमने तो कुछ बिगाड़ा नहीं उसका, ठीक है ना? But because his government depends upon New Democratic Party (NDP), whose leader is Jagmeet Singh, who is the pro-Khalistani guy, and he's pro-Khalistani because some of his constituents they like this discussion, they like this talk. They all understand because वहाँ बैठ के कनाडा में बैठ के हिंदुस्तान में खालिस्तान नहीं बनेगा, सब जानते हैं. I lived in Canada for 3 years. I've dealt with all of them. I was consul general in Toronto. They know it. But election जीतना है तो करेंगे वो लोग.
So we can say it is their freedom of speech as per the.
No, look, it's not a question of freedom. We don't. Why would we say that? We say that your freedom of speech can't extend to breaking somebody else's country and interfering in other countries' affairs.
Okay.
Understandably. See, my freedom of speech can't be provoked to incite trouble or incite I can say I don't like Avishka or that वो होशियार नहीं है, वो काबिल नहीं है, काम नहीं जानती है, पढ़ती नहीं है, जो भी है. वो मेरा व्यू है. But can I tell people जाके इसके घर में पत्थर फेंक देना? एक सड़क पे बाहर आया तो डंडा वंडा मार देना? वो तो नहीं कर सकता. So I can't incite trouble for you. I can give my view. That's the difference that we are saying, that you can't do that. Sitting there, you can't sit and create Khalistan in India.
Yes.
That's the point.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Nikita. Yeah, whoever, anybody else? Yeah, Nikita, go ahead, please.
Sure. Sir, I want to ask how to tackle the question with respect to the relevance of SARC and the future of it.
Then SARC has no future. Yeah. Is it till
So,
Pakistan?
sir, can we outrightly say that?
Yeah, say that. Well, nothing has happened in SARC, no? And not because of us. Not because of us. It's because of Pakistan.
Yes.
The SARC was not a political organization. It was an organization of regional cooperation.
Yes, sir.
So, but if Pakistan doesn't cooperate, then it doesn't cooperate. So what have we done? We have started subgroups. So we signed a FTA with Sri Lanka. We signed FTA with Bangladesh. And with Nepal and Bhutan, in any case, they are special treaty countries, so they can freely export anything to India. So खाली कौन बच गया? अफगानिस्तान बच गया, पाकिस्तान बच गया, Maldives बच गया, है ना? Maldives too small economy, 3 lakh लोगों की economy. So Pakistan doesn't want to participate.
Okay,
so we have created subgroups.
Yes,
Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal कर दिया, BIMSTEC कर दिया, वो कर रहे हैं हम लोग. To find solutions कि भी ठीक है पाकिस्तान को बाहर रहना रहे वहाँ पे.
जी सर और एक और क्वेश्चन है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द नैम कि लोग बोलते हैं कि इंडिया इज अडॉप्टिंग द स्टैंस ऑफ स्ट्रेटेजिक इंटरेस्ट. So what is the relevance of NAM now? Is it relevant or not in present context?
No, look, NAM is relevant. As I told you, India is a large country. It can stand up for its own. It can stand up to its beliefs and it will do what is in its interest. ठीक है ना? हमने न्यूक्लियर टेस्ट किए थे ना, हमने किसी से पूछ के थोड़ी किया, हम तो करें. But the smaller countries don't have that capacity to stand up to pressure of an America or Russia in the good old days or today China. They don't have the capacity. NAM gives that umbrella. अब क्या करें? I said I've dealt with NAM for 3 years when I was in New York and now mission to UN. तो always ये था भी क्या करें? NAM की position है, we can't change the position. और पूरा group का position है ना. जैसे आप बोलते हैं ना, कभी दोस्त बोलते हैं सिगरेट पी लो, आप बोलते हैं नहीं, प्रेशर आता है, बोलते हैं क्या करें, पापा मम्मी नाराज हो जाते हैं, इसे छोड़ दो, परेशानी, वो घर जाएंगे नाराज हो जाएंगे, I can't contact with them. You don't want to do it, but you just take it. So NAM becomes a group where you can say सब ठीक नहीं, and it's a good pressure point on developed countries, because now 117 countries are saying something.
Yes.
It has to be heard.
Okay.
Rahul, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Rahul.
Sir, you said that we have to build capacity to explain our point of view. So did you mean capacity in like comprehensive national power that we should try to develop?
नहीं यार, comprehensive national power का क्या, अगर आपको अमेरिका में किसी को समझाना हो,
क्या मतलब?
ठीक है ना? It's the question of explaining your decisions more. ठीक है ना? There's no end to it. You can keep trying more. That's it.
Because they know what we are trying to tell them, but they won't listen because.
Yeah, if they don't listen, ignore them ना, खत्म, ignore them, क्या करोगे आप? सबको तो नहीं convert कर सकते ना अपने cause में, आप अपने देश में नहीं कर पाते. I'm giving you clear examples ना. There's enough opposition to CA in India, there was enough opposition to Article 370 in India, right or wrong?
But they threaten diplomats also, so that is a concern. They are
so you raise those concerns, end of the matter. है ना? All I'm saying is that at times you have to explain what you're doing better. I'm not saying that everybody will get converted, but some of them may. And again, since I'm telling you because I've tried it.
Yes, sir.
When I was in Toronto, I've tried it. Some of the key brains behind Khalistani movement, or support to that, got converted. They understood the point of view. And they came to the consulate for India's Independence Day. People are shocked that ये हिंदुस्तान के National Day पे आए. It took days and days, weeks of conversation, maybe 10 lunch meetings, but some of them got converted. They understood that. You see, and the whole discussion was very simple. They had extrapolated the post Mrs. Gandhi's killing of Sikhs into India being against Sikhs. And they're two different things. One episode does not define a country. Much as what happened was wrong. And it should have been dealt with better, it should have been redressed better. Nobody in his good senses would say anything different. But then you don't extrapolate that सारा हिंदुस्तान सिखों के खिलाफ हो गया. I said my difficulties with that point. Not कि जो हुआ वो ठीक था. मैं कहाँ कह रहा हूँ वो जो हुआ ठीक था. जितना आपको दुख उतना मुझे भी दुख है कि मेरे देश में ऐसा क्या हुआ. To me, all Indians are Indians and they are equal and they are equally important to me. But to say सारा हिंदुस्तान खिलाफ वो तो गलत है ना. I said that's the only difference you have. I have with you is this: that you extrapolated that one event, whether it was failure of law and order, whatever you want to say, to mean कि सारे हिंदुस्तान सिखों के खिलाफ हो गया. वो तो गलत है ना. वो तो आपको एविडेंस है उसका. देखा है कभी आपने? And it took a lot of time to convince them to this point of view, but they understood it, and then they stopped supporting this movement. That's what I said. At times it needs a lot of engagement.
And sir, on that not joining alliances, can we also say that we can develop capability so that the world is dependent on us? That if
you can say what you want. Your answer should be what you believe in, not what I believe. That's the most important lesson I'm trying to give you to you guys. Whole purpose of explaining to you all this is your answer should be yours, not mine. I'm not being interviewed. You are being interviewed, and they'll check you on that. आप जो कह रहे हो उसमें विश्वास है कि नहीं आपको? It gets checked out very easily. So don't say मैं answer दे दूंगा. Give an answer in which you believe, which is based on facts and which you can justify. That's it.
And we also have nuclear deterrence also, so possibility of full-fledged war is less. So
yeah, I don't know in what context you're talking, because we have been through this debate about half a dozen times. You asked this question, I've answered it to you. So I really don't know what is it that you want to ask.
sir, nothing.
No, I want to help you, but I don't know what is it that you're from talking to NRIs to you move back to national capabilities, then you move back to. So you tell me exactly what is it that you want to be clarified. Answers have to be yours. They cannot be my answers.
Yes, sir. I have understood, sir.
हाँ, so अब आप बताएं आपको क्या डाउट है किसी इशू पे?
नहीं है सर.
चलिए. या Oishi? Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, with respect to RCEP, sir, if the question goes like this, that did India miss an opportunity by staying away from RCEP? Because SARC is also not working for us. And similarly, we are staying away from RCEP as well.
Okay, so let me answer this question. First is SARC. We have free trade agreement with Sri Lanka. We have free trade agreement with Bangladesh. We have free trade agreement and open borders with Nepal and Bhutan. So it's a free trade agreement. Okay, तो क्या बचा? As I explained to you earlier, एक Maldives बचा है, which is count for nothing. 3 लाख लोगों की population में क्या तो सामान बेच लोगे आप? कितना बेच लोगे? है ना? वो क्या बनाते हैं जो आप खरीद सकते हो? सिवाय ट्यूना के. Okay. एक बचा अफगानिस्तान और पाकिस्तान. Pakistan doesn't want to trade with you. They have taken this call. You can do nothing about it. ठीक है ना? सार्क और नो सार्क. एक बचा अफगानिस्तान. ठीक है? जहां बायलैटरल ट्रेड जो हो सकता है वो हो रहा है. There are limitations of रूट्स एटसेट्रा, वो जितना हो सकता है उतना हो रहा है. तो सार्क होने से कितना फर्क पड़ जाएगा? पाकिस्तान ही और आ जाएगा ना, बाकी तो कोई फर्क नहीं. बाकी सब सही है आपका फ्री ट्रेड. That's one part. Now you come to RCEP. Now RCEP, you see, please understand this thing. There are on these issues there are no clear कि किसमें खाली फायदा है खाली नुकसान. It's a trade-off of interest and very simple. हम क्या देंगे बदले में क्या मिलेगा? So the call was our industry was not ready, or we were not ready, industry was not ready, our infrastructure was not ready to have a free trade agreement with RCEP, which would have basically brought in free import of Chinese goods. That's the point. And the call of the government was, it will hinder our industrialization. Does it come with a price? Of course it comes with a price. There's nothing in life that doesn't come with a price. है ना? किसी के आगे झुकेंगे तो भी दाम देना पड़ेंगे, किसी के आगे स्टैंड लेंगे तो भी दाम देना पड़ेगा. You just have to take a balance. क्या बेटर है? Simple. So on balance, the decision was, and the judgment was, and which I support, that we need more time to bring our industry to speed, to bring our infrastructure to speed, to bring our manufacturing capacity to speed, and then we'll talk about it. अभी खोल दिया तो जो बाकी बचा है वो भी खत्म हो जाए. Which is what was happening to electronic industry. It never got developed because सब कुछ ASEAN countries से duty free मार रहा था. I don't know if you remember. I remember वो तो they would give you a ticket to go to Thailand. एक बड़ा टेलीविजन लेके आए ना, वो ड्यूटी कोई लगती नहीं थी. बहुत थोड़ी ड्यूटी थी. एक टेलीविजन फ्री आ सकता था इतने इंच का. ये कैसे हो सकता है? Do you want to finish your domestic industry? 10,000 रुपए का टिकट आता था थाईलैंड जाने का, 1-2 दिन ठहरता था, वो लेके आया था वापस. Now that was not what you were trying to promote. So RCEP में same issues थे. It was backdoor entry for Chinese trade. We didn't want that. Now, did it cause problem? Of course, it causes problem, because if you don't expose the industry to competition, they will never grow up. But then it's a balance. कि छोटे बच्चे के हाथ में चाकू नहीं दिया था ना, उंगली काट लेगा वो. It has to grow up. So and now that's a governmental call. At times you go right, at times you go wrong. For some things you go right, for some things you go wrong. Maybe some industries would have prospered because we would have been able to sell more. But on balance, the judgment was that our industries, our manufacturing capacities will get hit and they will not be able to become large players. So we need to give them more time. That was the call. That was the call. Now, there are flip sides to it. Indeed, there are. On balance, you decided it made sense. You're asking me, yes, it made sense to walk out of RCEP.
Okay, sir. So basically we balanced it towards like We balanced it basically.
That is the only way you can take a decision. आप जिंदगी में कोई भी हर निर्णय लेती हैं आप तो बैलेंस करती है ना. अभी आपका मन कर रहा है सिनेमा देख के आए, फिर कहते 4 घंटे खराब हो जाएगा, इंटरव्यू की तैयारी कर लेते हैं, बाद में देख लेंगे, है ना. यू आर पोस्टपोनिंग योर जॉय फॉर 3 months डाउन द रोड की इंटरव्यू खत्म हो जाए, फिर तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं, 4 सिनेमा एक साथ देख के आ जाएंगे. अभी नहीं जाते, मन तो अभी कर रहा है ना, दोस्तों के साथ घूमने का मन भी करता है, नहीं जाते हैं ना, अभी सब पढ़ाई करने में लगे हुए हैं. ये बैलेंसिंग योर इंटरेस्ट, क्या अभी पढ़ाई करना ज्यादा जरूरी, बाद में देखा जाए. और कुछ ऐसे हैं कि अभी कर लेते हैं, बाद में देखा जाएगा, वो फिर बाद में रोते हैं कि यार देखो पढ़ लिए होते और तो 2-4 नंबर से रह गए, है ना. बट ईच ऑफ अस टेक्स अ कॉल एंड नथिंग इज ऑन मिक्स ब्लेसिंग. अभी खाली पढ़ाई करनी पड़ रही है, कुछ नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, मन तो करता होगा. चलिए या राहुल.
Thank you, sir.
या राहुल कुमार.
Sir, is Russia-Ukraine war an outcome of American foreign policy?
Outcome of once again, is Russia
Ukraine
your war is the outcome of US foreign policy?
Ukraine
Yes.
war an outcome.
Yes. Is an outcome of what's the question? Is an outcome of US foreign policy or आपका सवाल क्या है, फिर से बताइए.
Is it an outcome of American foreign policy, or would Putin have invaded anyway?
Of course, no, it's the outcome of US foreign policy. Putin had made it a clear number of times. And in the 2021 agreement between Ukraine and Russia, Ukraine and US prepared the ground for the war.
And my second question is, what is the difference between non-alignment and strategic autonomy?
It's a fundamentally different thing. Non-alignment is a movement. There's a grouping of countries. Strategic autonomy is completely my own. See, non-alignment तो grouping है ना. Non-alignment तो grouping है. अगर आप non-aligned movement की बात, and non-alignment as an individual country हम किसी से align नहीं करेंगे, ठीक है ना? That's one part. That's one point. But strategic autonomy is you take a decision कि भाई हम जो ठीक समझे वो करेंगे. I don't want to be influenced by East or West, capitalism, communism, or China, US, Russia. हम जो ठीक समझेंगे, जो हमारे हित में वो करेंगे. And as a result of it, on each issue you will have different partners. So climate change में कोई आपका और partner होगा, अगर terrorism में कोई आपके partners अलग होंगे.
जिसके साथ भी अलाइन करेगा इंटरेस्ट, हम उसके साथ अपना एक्ट करेंगे या डील करेंगे.
That's the only sensible way to dealing with it.
Yes. And sir, what will be some good sources to understand and form our opinion on foreign policy, especially for the interviews?
This is what I've been trying to do.
Good sources.
पढ़ने के हिसाब से.
देखिए
ऐसा है, देखिए, it's very simple. As I told you, you must know your mind. Your answers should be based on your beliefs, and your beliefs should be based on facts, and thereafter your value judgments in life. ठीक है ना? तो वो तो निर्णय आप ही कर पाएंगे, जवाब क्या देंगे. मैं इसलिए मैं कह रहा हूँ, I don't prepare you, I don't give you any answers for what you should tell the interviewers. I never did that.
Yes.
My answers are my own, my beliefs, based on facts, of course, because your beliefs can't not be based on facts. So facts का अपना importance होती है, so you must know the facts. Your operating system processes the facts and produces answers. And that operating system हर एक का अपना अलग है. ठीक है ना? With same facts, and I'll give you one example to explain to you, which just to clarify this point for all of you. India had the capacity to do nuclear tests after the first Pokhran. At least 5 prime ministers I know who thought of it but did not do. Narasimha Rao wanted to do it, did not do. Deve Gowda wanted to do, did not do. Gujarat Sahib wanted to do, did not do. Atal Bihari Vajpayee came and did it. Same objective reality. But 3 महीने में थोड़ी इंसान बदल गया था. भाई ये सरकार तो मार्च में आई थी ना, वाजपेयी साहब की थी, और एग्जैक्टली 45 दिन में टेस्ट कर दी. कोई थोड़ी कि उनके आने के बाद सारी कैपेसिटी डेवलप हो गई, सब सीख गए मन कैसे बनाना. सो सेम ऑब्जेक्टिव फैक्ट्स कि इसका इम्पैक्ट ये हो सकता है, अमेरिका नाराज हो जाएगा, दुनिया नाराज हो जाएगी, सैंक्शन लग जाएंगे, सब मालूम था. क्या हो सकता है सब मालूम था. बट निर्णय लेने का जो ऑपरेटिंग सॉफ्टवेयर था वो अलग अलग था। फैक्ट्स वही थे, कैपेसिटी थी, साइंटिस्ट तैयार थे, वो सब था। बट वो सब तो एक फैक्ट थे, ऑपरेटिंग सॉफ्टवेयर वाजपेयी साहब का अलग था। उन्होंने कहा भारत के भविष्य के लिए सबसे जरूरी और अहम निर्णय है, इसके लिए सरकार दाव पे लगाना पड़े मैं लगा दूंगा, लेकिन देश के हित में वो ज्यादा जरूरी है, मेरी सरकार चले न चले वो इम्पोर्टेंट है। He took that call. Others to save their government did not take that call. तो I mean, this is to answer your question. जवाब क्या होगा? जवाब आप तय करें, आपका बिलीफ कहाँ पे, and what is it that you're prepared to pay the price for, and each decision will come with a consequence. There are no decisions which will not carry consequences. तभी डिसीजन होता है ना, वरना तो ऑटोमेटिक सूरज उगता है, सूरज ढलता है, आप क्या कर सकते हैं इसमें, है ना। जून में मानसून आएगा, ठीक है, जाड़े में बर्फ पड़ेगा, आपके whether you want it or not want it, you can't do anything about it. So when you take decision, there'll be consequences and there'll be trade-offs. What trade-offs you make depends upon your software, your operating system. ये निर्णय आपका अपना होगा, जवाब आपके अपने होने चाहिए, because there'll be consistency in it. जवाब वो नहीं होना चाहिए जो सतीश मेहता क्या कहता है, वो सतीश मेहता के जवाब। Your responses should be what you believe. Yes. And to believe, first is the fact, second is the operating system. Yeah, Rauf?
Sir, can you hear me? Sir, recently in UNESCO election on Asia Pacific group, India has been defeated by Pakistan.
Minor है
And also,
ये अखबार वाले तमाशे में आते हैं, छोटे सी पौधे का छोटा सा इलेक्शन, क्यों परेशान होता है यार। Maybe our mission was sleeping at the door. See, these elections were decided at the last moment. ठीक है ना, I've been election officer of our mission in the New York, in जब हम करते थे, हमने एक भी इलेक्शन नहीं हारा। एक इलेक्शन हारा था जब हमने पहले कह दिया था कि इलेक्शन नहीं जीत पाए। सरकार ने अलग निर्णय लिया, whatever they had to take, they took a decision that was foisted on us. We lost the election. Otherwise, we have an extraordinary track record of winning elections in the UN. Extraordinary track record, which शायद दुनिया में किसी मुल्क में।
sir, what I want to ask is on Israel-Hamas issue, there has been a divergence among India and the other global South countries. So what I'm asking is,
other which countries?
Global South, like Brazil, Argentina, and India. There was a divergence on Israel-Hamas initially. So what I want to ask is India role is diminishing among global South countries as a leader?
Why is it diminishing? By your logic, we can say their role is diminishing.
Because
India pursues, India pursues its interests. Brazil pursues its interests. The smart thing is to build convergences के हमारे दोनों के हितों में जितना convergence बढ़ेगा उतना disputes या differences कम होंगे, ठीक है ना? But we can't take decisions to please Brazil or to please South Africa or whoever else you wish, है ना? We take our decisions based on our interests, and we are very clear. Palestinian issue, our relationship with Israel is a bilateral issue. Simple. We support Palestinian cause, we support two-state solutions, we support all the UN resolutions on Palestine, most of them at least. उस जमाने में मेरे टाइम में 20 होते थे, उसमें 17 में हम सपोर्ट करते थे और 3 में एब्सटेन करते थे, तो ट्रेडिशनली हम वही करते थे। अभी भी शायद थोड़ा बहुत कुछ चेंज हुआ, वरना बाय एंड लार्ज वही है। Because the Palestinian issue still remains alive, the objective reality is not changed. But our bilateral relationship with Israel, this is in our interest. So there is absolutely, we don't have to be apologetic about it. We can't do things what Brazil wants us to do. As much as we don't expect Brazil to do things that you want them to do, if it's not in their interest. ठीक है ना? Yeah, Akash.
Sir, sometimes we use the term conflict, sometimes we use the term war. Can you please throw light on this, sir?
See, Conflict may not necessarily be a war. That is, conflict of interest doesn't mean necessarily a war. A small skirmish is not a war. ठीक है ना? So that's the magnitude and the scale at which you do it. Yeah, Rahul. Yeah, Rahul Kumar. Yeah. Good question.
I've already asked.
Okay. Thanks. नहीं आपको नहीं, आपका हाथ है ना यहाँ पे, हो गया. Ekta, you have a question?
Yes, sir. My interview has been scheduled on 9 January, and it is the day when we celebrate the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. So,
Yeah.
sir, I have opened certain dimensions like dual citizenship and persons of Indian origin and OIC, Howdy Modi, NRI voting rights, Africa, diaspora in Africa, USA, and why we celebrate only Pravasi Bharatiya Divas on that day because Mahatma Gandhi has come back to India. So, there can be any other dimensions which should I open, sir?
Not really. You see, is a question. What perhaps you might like to do is explain the importance, the growing importance of India's engagement with its children abroad.
Okay, sir.
And this engagement, by and large, has been a very mature engagement. We have not created a situation where we are asking people to choose between India and the country where they are living, because this will be a very wrong question to ask, and it will be a very wrong way of dealing with them. ठीक है ना? कई बार ये होता है, हम लोग बोलते हैं कि and you see it, वो क्यों नहीं करते हैं? भाई वो वहां के नागरिक हैं, नेशनलिटी उनकी वहां पे है, टैक्स वहां भरते हैं, रहते हैं वहां, इनकम वहां कमाते हैं. ठीक है ना? सो आपका जो उनसे संबंध है, उनका भारत से संबंध है, वो आध्यात्मिकता का है. ठीक है ना? इज द इमोशनल बॉन्ड, इज द कल्चरल बॉन्ड, इज द सिविलाइजेशनल बॉन्ड. बट जो लीगल बॉन्ड्स हैं, वो तो उनके उस देश से जहां के वो नागरिक हैं. सही है ना?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So and again, we don't. You see, the smart thing, as I keep repeating, and it should be useful if you internalize it. Idea is to build convergences, क्योंकि उसमें डिस्कॉर्ड कम होता है. अगर हम सारे विदेश में जो भारत के नागरिकों को बोले, आप अगर वो अमेरिका हमको ये नहीं करेगा तो आप अमेरिका के खिलाफ वोट देना है, आप अपने सरकार के खिलाफ हो जाए, तो आप जो बच्चे को संबंध है आपके खत्म कर देंगे. वो बोले आप रहते हैं यहाँ पे, भाई हम इस देश के नागरिक हैं, यहाँ टैक्स भरते हैं, उस देश की नेशनलिटी, उस देश का पासपोर्ट है हमारे पास, हमारे बच्चे यहाँ पढ़ते हैं. We are not doing that. It's not our business to do that. So that's why I said we want to build convergences. के तो दोनों खेत बिल्कुल वही हैं. और आप, and you can be a good American citizen and a good Indian culturally, because then you're helping both the countries build closer relations. जो सभी का फायदा है ना? So this was India's way of celebrating its children abroad, not to force or create choices for them कि आप हिंदुस्तानी रहना चाहते हो या अमेरिकन बनना चाहते हो. वो नहीं है सवाल. सवाल ही नहीं होता. Like all of us are different personas.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
आप अपने परिवार के सदस्य भी हैं, मोहल्ले की भी हैं, देश की भी हैं. And somebody told you आप मोहल्ला तय करो या परिवार तय करो, आप बोले जरूरत क्या है इसकी? I can do both.
Yes, sir.
That's the point. बाकी वो आप देख लीजिए कितना, like I think now about the remittances we get from abroad, from NRIs or PIOs or whatever you want to call them, is something like about $90 billion or so. It's a humongous amount that's coming in. Technologies are there, many of them are coming back, they're heading foreign companies, they're heading companies abroad, so they are, it's enormous impact. It's not easily measurable in terms of economic value or psychological value. The sheer sense of esteem that Indians enjoy today is in part what we have done in India, but in part what our fellow Indians or people of Indian origin have done abroad. See, when they see a Sundar Pichai or and they realize that तो हिंदुस्तान ऐसे लोगों को पैदा करता है, ठीक है ना?
Yes,
तो
sir.
सबकी इज्जत बढ़ती है उसमें.
Yes, sir.
तो इसमें
Yes,
तो कोई
sir.
dispute ही नहीं है. हाँ. चलिए, any other question?
No. Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.
Thank you very much for being such patient listeners. And Raju ji, thank you very much for sitting with us. आपको सब याद हो गया. अब तो next session आप खुद ही ले सकते हैं, नहीं?
नहीं sir.
Thanks a lot for all your interest, and wish you all the best for your interviews.
Thank you, sir.
And I know you're competing against each other, but as an outsider, I can wish you all the best. And let's hope that all of you make the list.
Thank you, sir.
Chaliye.
बहुत धन्यवाद आपका. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Okay. All the best and good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Good night.